It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. Baratunde's here with his Manifest Tunde. He's joined by Philip, Elmer-DeWitt, and Alex Wilhelm. Baratunde will talk about his plan for reinventing social media. We'll talk a little bit about digital well-being and its implications, both from Apple and Google. The Memoji, the Twitter wars, Anthony Bourdain, Microsoft buys GitHub, and AMD's Threadripper. There's a lot to talk about, and we're going to do it next on Twit.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is Twit This Week in Tech, episode 670, recorded Sunday, June 10th, 2018. Go Theranos or go home. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Uber. Read about all the ways Uber is moving forward by going to uber.com/moving forward. And by WordPress. Reach more customers when you build your business website on WordPress.com. Plans start at just $4 a month, and you can get 15% off any new plan purchase at WordPress.com/twit. And by Audible. For a free audiobook with a 30-day free trial, go to audible.com/twit or text TWIT to 500-500. And by the Ring Video Doorbell. Stop crime before it happens and help make your neighborhood safer with Ring. Go to ring.com/twit and get up to $150 off a Ring of Security kit. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, the show where we get together and discuss the week's tech news. What a great panel today. It is an OG Twit panel.
The experienced Twit panel.
Should I go in order of number of appearances on Twit?
Yes.
Sure.
So that means I start with you. Philip Elmer-DeWitt, who is really the senior guy in Mac and Apple reporting at Time, at Fortune, and now at his own site, PED 3.0. Actually, it's PED30.com. If I put the point in there, but that's the point. It's your
my 12th appearance.
12 times. 12 times on Twit. To his right, from Crunchbase News, editor-in-chief, Alex Wilhelm.
Hello.
How many times?
I closed the wiki, but I think this is my 15th.
15th time.
Yes, which is a lot of, that's 30 hours of Twit sitting next to you and not strangling you. Do I get like an
It's
award
impressive.
for that?
Well, for the first 5, you were drunk, so it didn't matter.
Now
You're hopped up on Red Bull, and you probably more likely to strangle.
Much more likely, yes.
And finally, Baratunde Thurston is here. We love Baratunde. You've been on 21 times, I think.
This is number 22.
Nice.
The second to you, Mr. Laporte. It's really good to be back.
Hey, it's really great to have you. Actually, Baratunde's been up to something very interesting. You sent me a note this week, and I think we all read it. There's a couple of posts on Medium about detoxing.
Yes, from our data apocalypse that is always seems just upon us. But I did a personal process that I went through courtesy of these artists and activists out of Germany called Tactical Tech that lets you kind of review your own exposure to data. And so I did a personal journey and took notes and chronicled it. And out of that experience, which I've been processing for over a year, honestly, I wrote a humbly titled New Tech Manifesto on ways I think that we could collectively not just be afraid of what the present is, but like write a better future. My hope is that we don't feel disarmed by all of this or too depressed by it, but that we actually feel inspired. We're still early days of the internet and this whole networked world, and it doesn't have to be an advertising hellscape where we are all in someone's dossier of us. So I encourage folks to check that out, baratunde.com.
I think the timing is good. I feel like we're making progress in that regard, aren't we? Thanks to
Yes, we are.
GDPR and the Facebook debacle. We were watching the Facebook. So on the NBA playoffs, there were 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 apology commercials.
Yes.
Facebook, which has been running for several months. And I loved Facebook's because it said, all the things you love about Facebook, and then something happened, as if they had nothing to do with it.
It was like passive event that occurred.
Yeah.
They were the victims here.
Then something happened. Fake news happened.
Poor Zuckerberg, really. We should all just
Privacy.
sympathy for him.
People lost their data. It just happened. And it was pretty funny. And then there's Wells Fargo. They took a little more, I think a little more.
The Wells Fargo ad was the most annoying ad to listen to, but it was the most honest, I think, in admitting their own flaws. They said, we lost your trust. Accurate.
I wish Facebook had said,
Own it.
we lost. Yeah, own it. That's the only kind of apology that works.
Yeah. One of the things, my favorite line from my little short series was, Facebook has been not just on an apology tour, but like a corrective blogging exercise where if you go to newsroom.fb.com, which I encourage everyone to do because we probably haven't, they are launching all these new tools. And they're saying we're going to audit the app developers and we're gonna get them. We're going to get them for abusing your data. And it's like, dudes, it was like you opened the door. You left the keys in the lock. You had signs up that said, grab all this data while you can. Everything must go. So, Facebook, auditing and investigating app developers is like Walter White investigating Jesse for all that meth Jesse made in Walter's lab using his scientific knowledge. And until they not only apologize, but like really come clean and acknowledge that it was part of their corporate growth strategy to let all these folks in and sell us all out, it's going to be very hard to take them seriously when they ask for our trust back. I can't even trust you to be honest about the problem you helped create.
But that would require a little bit of humility on the side of Facebook, right. And I don't think that corporation has humility built into its DNA.
I think it goes right back to the business model. I mean, Zuckerberg has been playing fast and loose with his users' data since he was in short pants in Harvard, and he keeps apologizing, and it's always the same thing. It's just he's dependent on his business is dependent on the users sticking around, watching ads, and whatever if you're going to prioritize user engagement, then you're going to have things like the 2016 election. Did you see the thing that they did on the Daily Show, the Facebook skit?
No.
What if Facebook were a bar? Do you have that? Do you have that video?
I can play it. What if Facebook? Is this recently or?
Yeah.
Bartender used to work for the Daily Show, right?
I did.
Yeah.
Was that during the Jon Stewart era or the Trevor Noah era?
It was the first of the Trevor Noah era.
You did a really good job, man.
Here's Trevor and.
Go to 220 in the.
Yes.
We'll go. This is a longer piece about Facebook. We'll go into the video.
If Facebook was a real physical place.
Hey, want to see a pic of my kid?
Nope. I'm heading out.
Don't want to stay for another drink?
Sorry, but this place kind of blows. I procrastinated long enough. I gotta get back to work.
She's got a Hillary Clinton button on her purse.
Check it. Before you go, this guy says Bernie would have won.
Oh, boy.
Seriously?
Them's fighting words.
Right. Here's what I hate about Bernie Bros.
You want another drink?
Yeah. Bernie is a socialist. The idea that a Rust Belt voter would ever...
What do you know about Rust Belt voters? We're the real America. Bartender, another pitcher, please. We're going to be here a while.
Oh. Bartender has a little face.
Climate change is real. Did you even see Leonardo DiCaprio's documentary series?
Want to see a pic of my kid?
I'm tired of Hollywood idiots
Nope.
telling us what to do. They should stick to acting.
They should stick to not sexually harassing. Hashtag Me Too. Hashtag Time's Up. Hashtag Boycott Hollywood.
Hey, take a joke, Snowflake. LOL.
Hey, I know it's problematic for me to say this as a straight white cis male, but check your privilege and show this beautiful goddess some respect.
Oh, boy. She just threw her drink in his face.
You need to do something about the misogyny in here.
Absolutely. And we're doing everything we can to block people like that from coming in here. And if we can't do that, we don't deserve to serve you. Speaking of, may I serve you?
Hell yeah, you can.
And another drink.
Sweden, they don't even have a word for poverty.
F Tupac. I like Lil Yachty.
You seem so trustworthy.
This is fairly accurate.
I feel like I can tell you anything.
Why would this not happen in real life?
I love that accent.
because they wouldn't talk to each other.
Cambridge Analytica hat.
Yeah, he has a Cambridge Analytica.
No, blue lives matter. And
All lives matter. You both wrong.
I think you mean you are both wrong.
hey, can I see a pic
boy.
of my kid?
Aww.
She hauls off and slugs her. And he's just collecting money, more beer, more drinks.
The earth is
The
flat.
bar is jammed.
It's getting worse.
And everybody's fighting. Guys with Russian hats.
I'd like to pick up my kid right goddamn now.
Stop it! Look at what this place is doing to you. It's toxic.
Yeah, you're right. Should we leave?
So I apologize for people listening, but I think you can imagine what the video
Yeah, I mean,
shows.
it's a pretty accurate audio rendition of Facebook
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. So the thing about real life is there's a natural damper on that kind of stuff, right? You don't want to confront somebody directly. So there are people, occasionally you'll be in a bar that you'll meet somebody like that, but they're shut down fairly quickly, right?
Right, and the bartender tries to keep things calm rather
Instead
than,
of lighting a fire.
Right.
Now, I feel like Twitter's even worse. I just want to say, Facebook's getting a lot of heat, but really, if you want to go into a bar fight, just say anything on Twitter.
Yeah, but the argument about Facebook's data usage is pretty separate from the toxicity of the platform itself. So they're similar points, but they are distinct, I think.
And the idea that Facebook knows all these things about us and has been making money the whole time off of that deep knowledge, that is, to Alex's point, more specific to Facebook than Twitter, which is a uncontrolled space, but not as deeply ingrained in our psyche as Facebook.
Yeah.
I disagree.
There's no baby pictures on Twitter.
I think Twitter is a more subtly, I think actually Twitter is causing a national psychosis right now. So Facebook, you're right about the surveillance capitalism and all of that. But if you're just looking at the effects of a site on people, Twitter semes to really turn even nice people into monsters.
Yeah, but when they looked at the numbers about how ideas flowed, they may have started at Twitter, but the impact was on Facebook. That's when it reached
because
most
it's
people.
much bigger, right?
Yeah.
There's not, I mean, the people who are on Twitter are us. There's a lot of media people there. But relatively speaking, there's not billions.
Twitter's
Facebook
300 million,
is involved
Facebook's 1.5
in
billion.
the world's democracies or falling versions of those things on a much deeper level.
Right, and you can sell ads. You can target content on Facebook in a way you can't.
Do you think, Baratunde, though, that this idea of detox is going to go any farther than us? Do you think general people, the guy with the photo, he's not going to leave?
So what I try to consistently argue for, I think it's a both and or a yes and type strategy. I don't think individual action alone is going to fix all this stuff. It's like just say no. Right? Yes, just say no, but also don't create an environment where like drugs are the only outlet or selling them is the only economic opportunity. And so that means we got to look at the systems. So individual detoxing to some degree, I think is really valuable, educational for us to kind of look into the maw, the gaping maw of nonsense that we have like opened ourselves up to. And then we should put pressure on the companies, put pressure on our regulators and our oversight bodies, get the research in place to give us the tools to better manage. And the good news, if you look at Apple's announcement last week, if you look at Google with Android P, they are starting to get the message, certainly around the addictive stuff and the sort of mind hacking, and I think soon around the data and giving us tools to have transparency. Because individually, it took me a lot of time to go through that process. And I was able to recover some of that value by writing for money about it.
Right.
But that's my job. It is not everybody's job to make a full time out of tuning your privacy settings and reclaiming slices of your life from these massive multinational companies whose job it is to sell us.
You're right. I had put off this portion of the data detox because I prioritized time with my girlfriend, watching Atlanta, and living my life. However, it isn't easy, is it? And in fact, as you dig into, in this case, Evernote's terms, 29,000 words, you found all sorts of stuff that wasn't quite as user friendly as it looked like on the surface, right?
No, and look, what the simplest thing I asked for out of this, and everyone who's listening should know we're still early in the show. I've got a bunch of bit.ly links, but if you just go to baratunde.com, you'll find the whole set. The most important is that I took the manifesto piece, like my call to collective arms, metaphorically speaking, and I opened it up. It's an open Google Doc, and people can edit and continue to add to it. So the thing that people have attached the most to is I used an analogy to food preparation, food service, and grocery sales. And I said, look, we don't individually bring chemistry sets to the grocery store to analyze the contents of our food.
We don't have to because they've made
the government
laws.
has mandated nutrition labels,
Yeah.
and companies are going further. You know, Whole Foods has done this whole thing where you understand the sourcing and all of that. Technology is designed to do batch processing. It's designed to surface information at scale. So if there's one industry in the history of all industries that could inform us at scale more clearly, it is technology. So to apply that lens, not to nutrition, but to how our data is used. I would love to not have to read $30,000 of a terms of service. I'd love to be able to compare and contrast who's selling me out, who's, sucking in my friends' address books, who is stalking me across the web with invisible trackers. And then, the consent becomes informed. Right now, we don't really have meaningful consent, right? We have compulsory consent, which isn't consent at all. It's like hostage taking. Right. So that's an example. No one should have to read 30,000 words for every app you interact with. That is a lifetime of work, and we can do better. This industry was designed on just making that sort of information accessible, distillable, and clear. So I try to be hopeful and say, we can do this, as opposed to, oh my God, we're screwed, unplug from the Matrix, it's all over. I don't think so. I don't want that. I like the Matrix. It's beautiful.
Hashtag Manifestunde.
Manifestunde. Yeah, I love the hashtag.
I like the second point a lot in the manifesto because it ties into what you just said, which is, change data defaults from open to closed. And so if you give people that, you say 90% of people will stick to defaults, give them better privacy up front, and people will have kind of a much
what's
better
the incentive for a surveillance capitalism company like Facebook to do that? That's just shooting themselves in the foot.
Well, they want me back because I've left Facebook entirely now, and so
they don't want you back.
Well, not me, like me, but
no, they get more people joined every day than quit over the last year.
But if you look at their earnings breakdown of their revenue per user per region,
is it going down?
No, but there's certain users that are much more valuable to their investors. And so if they lose their mind share in certain markets like the US, where they're seeing a decline in teen usage, which bodes very poorly for their aggregate North American usage, those users monetize at a much higher rate due to how the advertisers work. So they care a lot more about not just number, but also which users they are. And so if we in the United States log off, because we know about this and we don't like it, that harms their earnings more than just losing any kind of one user around the world.
Philip wanted to say something.
Oh, sorry.
Well, we read your manifesto on the ferry over here.
Oh,
we got to number.
That was designed for boat-based reading. Thank you so much.
Can you scroll up to number 5?
Yeah, we can pull that up for you.
Because it really gets down to, it seemed to me, you want some new laws. You want government regulation.
Is that the right thing to do?
Well, I'm just asking this. What are you looking for? What are the laws that you think ought to be passed, and in what priority?
Yeah, I don't have a complete answer to that. I'll be very straight up. I approach that call for regulation in the same way that I think we've approached other elements of life that have been regulated, whether it's highway safety, food safety, child labor. I think, and the call for this manifesto came out of the idea that individual action is not enough. You look at climate change, right? We can't paper bag our way out of burning our planet down. And so we have a facility for collective action. It's called government, in democracies for sure. And if we reclaim that and exercise our power through that, we have to redesign some elements of it, but it is one of our most effective, despite all the rhetoric about dysfunction, ways of exercising collective power. So it's not that I have a list of the top 20 laws and here's the subsections and all, but I think the principles of managing and using the government to exert influence where we individuals don't have power feel sound to me. And they may include things like ownership of our data, GDPR is the right direction. Who knows exactly how that's going to play out? It's way too early. But at least Europe is trying. In the U.S., we're just like, oh, you want to rob people? Go forth and do that. And that's not acceptable.
In the U.S., we like market-based solutions. We have a kind of fetishism about the market. And that's what you're suggesting, Alex, right? Would that be sufficient?
I think we all agreed that the market itself is never enough, because in a fully market-based capitalist society, the poor people get ground to a faint dust, and the rich people at the very top do very well. So some regulations are critical. Now, I don't think about social media legislation much, and I don't think any of us did before 2016. So I don't, like Barrington, I don't have exactly a list of things that I would change, but certainly if we had some rules, maybe even reminiscent of GDPR, that would be a good place to start, because we can't just do nothing. I don't think that'd be healthy for our nation long term.
Yeah.
Well, number 2, for example, change data defaults from open to closed.
Right.
That's a good one.
That's a simple rule.
I love that.
And the government could enforce that.
The downside, though, is what counts as open, what counts as closed, what counts as a default. We're going to end up having that battle back and forth. And Congress, as we saw during the Zuckerberg hearings, is not well read on this stuff. So to kind of fully execute what we think we need,
to say the least.
I was shooting for understatement for once. For once, I was trying to be British. I admit it does happen sometimes. But maybe if we can elect a younger group to Congress, and we talked about this in the pre-show a little bit, we can actually make some progress here, because we can't just let Mark Zuckerberg, who has voting control of Facebook, decide for 2.2 billion monthly actives or whatever it is, what's going to happen with their privacy, their data, their life, and their children. Like that's too much power in one hand. To quote Kanye, too much. Oh, and I forget the lyric. Oh, well, move on.
That's all right. We've all forgotten a lot of things Kanye said. That's probably
Thank you for saving me.
But I would say in a rare super unpatriotic moment, like I would welcome some British oversight back in the U.S.
Oh no, you don't want.
Given if you looked at the questions that the British subcommittee on commerce, sport, and I forgot the full title, like the way they questioned Facebook's CTO versus the way our senators questioned Zuckerberg, is clear they care more. Like they've done their homework more. And on this point, they were better representatives of humanity than the U.S. Senate was.
And yet, I mean, the UK is famous for citizen surveillance. They're famous for, I think maybe one of the things that's going on there is that they trust the government to surveil and they don't trust private industry to surveil. We're quite the opposite. Here in the U.S.,
excellent.
We are in favor of
like if you're going to surveil for money, go forth. Like that, we're all about that.
I think
if the spying is profitable, do it.
Yeah, but frankly, I'm much more afraid of a government surveillance than I am. Facebook doesn't have.
But we have
nuclear
both here
weapons
in America. As we learned through the Snowden era, we learned that the U.S. government does have.
It's worse in the UK.
I agree that it's worse in the UK, but it's also bad here. So I don't want to give us a pass on the government side of this equation. But at the same time, I don't see a way forward that's better in the short term.
Yeah. Well,
and the idea that, everybody can be evil, right? Governments and corporations. Given how much in the U.S. we've outsourced to corporations, it's not a clean line anymore.
Yeah.
We find our love and our jobs and so much through these platforms. And so it's not a nuclear weapon, but as Cambridge Analytica has shown, there is a weaponization possible of these platforms.
It's not a pleasant
that has real harm, right?
Yeah.
And so, if you look, like Russia is very excited about the chaos that's been caused, and they didn't have to technically fire a shot, right? It wasn't a ballistic missile, but make no mistake, like this was an attack, and we are suffering and paying the price of it in trade deals gone awry, in war with freaking Canada. Like, why are you picking a fight with Canada? Seriously? Like, that's how tough you are? You're going to pick a fight with Canada? They're like the nicest people. So I just think we have to be careful that even though it doesn't look like a hard weapon, these soft weapons can do just as much damage.
Well,
and that's powered
let's take a break. And then we can look at what Apple, and you mentioned Android too, what Apple and Google are both doing. I think probably because of market forces saying, hey, you better take care of this because the risk is if you don't, somebody else might.
The government will step in.
The government will. But I think companies are paying attention. Maybe not Facebook, maybe not Twitter, but maybe Apple. Let's talk about what Apple announced in just a second at WWDC earlier this week. I mentioned that the NBA Finals had apologies. There were 3 of them. I didn't mention the third one, which is Uber. And I have to say, I'm really impressed. Uber is spending some money to tell people that they are moving forward. And I am a big Uber fan. You guys used Uber. I use Uber. I never actually did delete Uber. But I wanted Uber to acknowledge the issues and do something about it, and they are. They're working on how to keep us better protected, how to keep us better connected during a trip. They created a safety center where you can learn about driver screening and community guidelines to ensure everybody's moving safely. You can now, this is really interesting. I haven't used the Uber app in a while, but a couple of weeks, I think. But you can designate up to 5 family members and friends as trusted contacts. Did you see that in the app? Set up reminders to share your trip details with them whenever you ride so they can see you on the map and know when you've arrived. My daughter, my college-age daughter, had her 3rd and final car crash this week. She didn't hurt herself, but she's totaled the car. And I said, hey, good news. It's actually cheaper for you to take Uber everywhere. And now, you know, I feel safe having her do that. So I think that's a really good thing. And I will have her set me up as a trusted contact so I know where she is and how she's arrived. My mom uses Uber in Rhode Island, too. She's 85. She hasn't had a car in some time. Mobility's been an issue. For her to go to my sister every time she wants to go to the store or the doctor has been a real problem. I'm going to have her call Liza soon. But no, she's now, I set her up with Uber, put the credit card in. She loves it. And Uber's updated the app to make it easy for you to verify the details of your ride. You'll see your driver's name, car, license. You can make sure to get the right car, the right ride every time. I think I want Uber to succeed. I want Uber to solve these problems and move forward. And I think they're doing exactly that. You can find out more at uber.com/moving forward. I think this is an important trust initiative. And as a fan and a user, I'm really glad to see what Dara Khosrowshahi is doing and how they're moving forward to re-earn our trust. Uber.com/moving forward. Apple WWDC Monday. You were there, Philip Elmer-DeWitt?
Yes, I was. San
Is
Jose.
that your first time seeing the... Oh, you didn't go to the campus. This was at McHenry.
Right.
The convention
Yeah, this was
center.
in San Jose. I have been to the campus.
Didn't they have a night, the day before they had an event there where people could go and...
Gee, I don't know. I didn't get invited. Shoot.
I didn't get invited to any of it, so you're ahead of me, believe me.
So you want to talk about...
impressions first.
Impressions. I thought it was a pretty disorganized show. As an editor, I thought it had the flaws of a feature story with 2 competing structures going on. At one, it was structured, okay, here are the 4 operating systems, we're going to update them.
Yeah, that seemed like a sensible, especially once they acknowledged no hardware.
Right.
That's macOS, tvOS, watchOS, and iOS.
But it was totally uneven because they had way more to say about iOS and macOS than they had about...
tvOS was a throwaway.
Yeah. And then it was also for 2 audiences, the developers and the users.
But they've historically had that problem at WWDC.
Right. And for my sense of it was that for the developers, it was the setup, not the punchline. They were giving them a lot of tools that we're not going to see the results of for months or years for the Mac stuff. For the users, there was a lot of punchline. There were a lot of little improvements from how you control notifications to, the stuff that you wanted to get into, which is monitoring your addictive behavior.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Let me just say the 2 things, and I'll get out of the way, because to me, there were 2 takeaways that I thought were very interesting. One, the fact that they've put effort into the Finder, into macOS, I found very encouraging. I was really worried that Apple had just given up on Macintosh. Yeah. And I'm not convinced that they haven't. But at least they've got somebody spending some energy, putting effort into a Finder, which is the main thing you use on macOS, which hasn't been changed in years. Right. They actually put some effort into the Finder. And I thought that was very encouraging. And they did something that has, in some ways, been a pipe dream for computer scientists since the earliest days of personal computing. And I know, Philip, you'll remember this. You young guys won't. Document-centric computing.
Yeah.
And the idea is, right now, I mean, we're just used to it. It's always been this way. You want to do something, you launch an app. The app does whatever it is you want to do on the data, on the document. It's apps and documents. But even going back to Alan Kay and the Dynabook and the very first vision that started the Macintosh at Apple, it wasn't Alan Kay, it was, I've forgotten his name.
So the mouse guy?
Yeah. No, not the mouse guy. Anyway, his name will come to me in a second. The chat room will tell me. But the earliest days with the Dynabook, the idea was, well, why launch apps? That's very modal. You're now in the word processing mode. You're in the, shouldn't you just work on documents and whatever capabilities you need just be available to you in that document? And it doesn't mean that apps don't exist. And we're seeing the technology now here, even on smartphones, where you've got the app, that capability can be present front and center in the operating system. And so they showed with Finder editing photos, putting a signature in a PDF. I mean, some really interesting things that don't require you to launch an app first. And I hope that Apple is sincere about working on Finder. And I hope that this is a direction that they're going to take, because this is the future. This could be a really interesting future for computing.
I think they've made a blunder.
Jeff Raskin was the name I was trying to think of.
I think they made a blunder. Whoever had the idea that the Mac should be more like an iPod, or an iPad rather.
Well, that was my second.
You and I were both complaining about the same. I live on a MacBook Air, and they haven't made one to replace it. They've taken away my magnetic thing. They've put all the plugs that don't work, and
this was, to me, the two tracks was Apple giveth and taketh away. Craig Federighi gets up there and says, no, we're not merging iOS and Macintosh. Big fat no. Boom.
Yeah, but then he says yes.
The very next thing they announce is, and by the way, you can put your iOS apps on Mac, which is exactly the thing that will kill the Macintosh. Well, it'll turn it into iOS.
Well, that would kill it. But they showed, I think, with the 4 apps that they put on it, that stocks and whatever the other.
Well, everybody's been holding their breath till the stocks app made it.
I have not been able to.
Anyway,
I know, isn't that exciting? It's so exciting.
Stocks update is what news.
And measuring, we can measure.
Wait, I have things to say about both those things. That measurement thing was brutal, because when they came out with augmented reality with the ARKit. There weren't very many.
This is what it ended up being.
There weren't very many usable apps that came out, and the only one that I liked that I bought was a measurement app, and it turned out they were Sherlocked them all, and just without apology. Look what we've discovered. You can measure.
And by the way, not very accurately, according to people who've been using the beta.
Yeah, I saw that.
But there were dozens of people in the audience saying, "Oh my God, he just killed my app."
So I want to talk about that the in-room reaction to that sort of announcement, because I watched the live stream. I wasn't there in person, but it felt like there was a lot of moments where they would pause for applause, and then no one would clap, and then the employees in the room would start the applause track, and it made the entire
journalists are not supposed. Philip, correct me. Journalists are supposed to sit on their hands.
You don't clap at events, but anyways, there would be.
So that's why they put these clacks of Apple employees in the front rows, so that you hear cheers.
But it feels so artificial. It doesn't come across well.
It's always been that way.
But it felt really bad this time. It felt like the Big Bang Theory soundtrack inside a WWDC, and it made me want to claw my eyes out.
In the room, you can really tell when it's just the Apple employees clapping, or when it's the room. When dark mode was introduced.
We're all happy about dark mode.
Everyone's
well, first of all, I wrote a book on how to be black. Dark mode made me very excited.
It's really more how to be 30% gray, but okay.
Well, that's fine. It's getting closer. Apple speaking high visual language, and I accept it.
Actually, I think dark mode is a big improvement. It's kind of ironic because every operating system except macOS has always had theming.
And also talk about surface changes. That was one bit.
It's a bit. Yeah.
Right.
On the other hand, Paul Thurrott, who you don't expect to say nice things about Mac much, said, he grudgingly said, you know what, they did it right. It really looks good. We've got dark modes in Windows, for instance, and there's always an app that doesn't do it right, or there's a title bar that's ugly. He said Apple has really done it right in a way that it really is aesthetically pleasing. And he's a designer.
And Paul's hard to please.
Paul's
great guy, but he's essentially grown up with 2 legs. But I love him.
It's also the cheapest way to get a new computer.
Yeah.
It's just to change the way your existing computer looks.
Like,
oh, wow, totally new operating system. Awesome. Thank you.
Fins. So
can I talk about parental controls?
Yeah, well, all right. So now I said my piece. Let's talk about, in general, the whole health and well-being part of this.
Well, so if you weren't there, if you haven't heard about it, they've offered a way to look at what you're doing with your iOS device.
In a very granular way, how much time you spend on an individual app.
Which apps, when you're looking at them, fine. And I think there will be adults who will use this, I say, okay, let's see in a year how many people are doing it. It's kind of like counting your calories.
You can even set a limit on how, like, you've Instagram. You said you only wanted to use it 2 hours a day. You're almost there. You can bypass it, but they warn you.
Apple offered us a lot of ways to control our experiences with Facebook-owned companies. I think it's great.
That was the other thing. All of the digs were Facebook and Google, mostly Facebook, but Facebook and Google. It's like, you want to control how much you've used Facebook? We can do it.
Sorry, Philip was going to give us a great take.
Maybe it's because I grew up in a family that had a lot of controls and a lot of rules and a lot of grounding. I just see this from the kids' point of view. And, the parents now have a way to look into their kids' devices and see exactly which apps they're using, how long they're using it, how much time they spend after bedtime looking at these things. And I think this is horrible. There was a lot of talk about empowering people. Well, they just empowered the man, and it's
you're such a hippie.
No, I'm in love with this. Kids have rights too.
And the kids, how do you think it's going to feel to the kids? And it's not quite as bad as Nixon's marijuana laws, but I think we're going to look back at this time and say this is when a wall got put between the parents and the kids.
Your kids did not grow up in the era where they had a mobile device they could take to bed with them.
Digital crack rock. And
that's digital crack rock.
For fighting.
And my kids didn't either, but I have a 15-year-old now, Lisa's son, my stepson. And if we don't turn off the internet at 10 p.m., he will not sleep all night because he will be on his iPad. And it's 8 in the morning when we go to get him up for school, he'll say, but I haven't slept yet. I mean,
and I see this in line with advertising controls on what you can say to young people, right? We know that the brains of young people aren't fully developed until we're like 70, 80 years old, right? We just don't know anything until then. And sophisticated psychological manipulation on kids to want sugary cereals, to smoke cigarettes, to do this and that is not a fair fight between a parent and a massive multinational corporation with all of science and all of capital at its back. And so I see this as restoring some balance. I don't have children, but I have friends who do. My former high school just decided to shut down a lot of Wi-Fi access because kids are coming to school and just watching television, right? Because they're streaming YouTube. They're having parties with Spotify, and that's not the point of being in school all day. Is just to jam out to some hot tunes.
No, that's the point of college.
That's what you pay money for that later in life. So I can't speak to this directly from a parent perspective, but I just think we know the science and the manipulation that has gone into making these apps as addictive as possible. And when we think of these supercomputers not as tools, but as cigarettes, as drugs, as sugar, parents have no possible opportunity to help their children resist those urges. It is not a fair fight. And I see Apple and Google trying to restore some power back to us. I do think it's empowering to let us have our.
And parents don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. I understand what you're saying, Philip. We don't want a police state in our house. But I always say to parents, look, I'm not going to judge how you raise your kids because you have your own challenges.
Except I'm definitely judging, by the way.
But I'm going to judge. No. No, but at the same time, it's important that parents understand kids need a place where they can express themselves without somebody looking over their shoulder. They do need a certain amount of freedom. But at the same time, if you have a kid who's getting in trouble, whether it's using crack rocks or digital crack rocks, it's nice to have some tools. So I'm not completely against that. I think I understand what you're saying, and you don't want a police state in the house.
Yeah, I mean, if this leads to genuine conversations and
that's what you need,
real parenting. Yeah. I'm for it, but
there's not a lot of real parenting going on.
I can just see a lot of families getting torn apart when imagine when the kid's 13 and starts watching porn, and his parents are monitoring how much porn he's watching after the lights turned off.
How Jimmy, you've exceeded the 3 hours we allotted you on Pornhub.
Hold on. How granular does it get? Does it tell you which
level? It would just know Safari.
No, it has websites too.
It has websites too.
It does.
Will it tell you which pages? Sorry, Barrington, go for it.
No, I may shift over to Philip if it gets down to specific web page monitoring. I thought this was about app time.
Yeah, because
I may be mistaken, but I think Jason Snell told me that there are websites as also included.
Because then you could tell if your kid hadn't come out yet based on what they were watching. And I don't think that's something that your phone should be disclosing to your parents for you. What if you're in a family of
That's something for Facebook to disclose in an ad.
But let me ask you this. None of you have small children.
Show title, 3 hours on Pornhub.
If you had kids under 12, would you require their passcode to unlock the phone? Or would you say, no, you can do anything you want, I don't want to see it?
I'm not sure I'd give them a phone.
Well, you're going to first of all, you're going to have to give them a phone.
I have the password. I have the password.
You'd have to have the password, right?
Kidding me? Do you know the horrible, like, I'm going to keep this as tight as possible. There are nefarious, bad people out there trying to hack our kids' minds. There are white supremacists trying to recruit folks. There are violent folks trying to get access to our kids. There are people who are just using the algorithm to hack their attention so they can make money.
That's really the problem. Look at YouTube. Look at the YouTube recommendations, right?
Yeah, and it's like I literally saw a video for kids that was like Hitler in a bikini dancing next to a burning car.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that's psychologically damaging for me, much less for a 10-year-old. So no, there's no way some kid who's 10 and is in my stewardship
what age
just gonna have access to a supercomputer with no supervision.
What age do you say to your kid?
35.
35.
Definitely 35.
Not 18. 18 maybe, but 17?
I mean, at least 18, right? I mean, like this.
You know what's really interesting, Baratunde? For a long time, there was this stranger danger thing, this epidemic, and you know, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Kids was focusing on stranger danger, and it turned out that most kids were abused and/or abducted by people they knew, mostly relatives, family members. There wasn't really any stranger danger. It's one of the reasons we don't let kids out on the street anymore. They have to stay at home all the time. Now you've got the new Nazi stranger danger. You've got white supremacists.
Yeah, but they're real. They actually
Is it
have
real?
rallies.
Is it a genuine threat?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think, you know, if you look at the way ISIS has been recruiting around the world, it is primarily through social media.
That's terrifying.
And if you look at the way some of the white nationalist, white supremacist movements are evolving, they are using social media and video to change people's perception and normalize some of these topics. I don't, look, this is a real hypothetical question for me. I don't have a teenager. And I was one, and I definitely do not like the idea of my mother going through all of my notebooks, all of my diaries, things like that. So there is a sliding scale of access that I think declines as one gets older, and you risk pushing your teenager away further if you don't demonstrate some trust. But I just know if you're under 12, that passcode is tattooed inside of my eyelids for sure.
Yeah, I don't want to downplay either the risks. You know, I don't. It's hard nowadays to be a parent in this digital era. Most parents are not as sophisticated as the kids. The truth is, we know kids can get around whatever restrictions you place on
this. Let the games begin.
Yeah. So, but at the same time, I feel for parents in this era trying to raise a good kid.
I just thought the kids' point of view ought to be represented. We didn't hear a word of it from Apple.
Baratunde, what did you came out okay? What did your mom do with you?
Oh boy, she exposed me to a lot of different activities. In terms of, like, I was in the Boy Scouts, right? I went camping with her and with other groups. I read a lot. I had no girlfriend, so that freed up a lot of time to read books and learn science.
Did she keep women away, or did you just...
No, that was not her saying. I did it all on my own. Okay. I was very talented at that non-talent. And yeah, when I think it was a different time, I did have a computer, and it was bulletin boards at the time, and very early, like 1400 baud, 9600, 288K. You know, speeds. So it was just too slow. Like, trouble happened more slowly back in the mid 90s.
Glacial trouble.
You had to really want to do bad things and be like disciplined and persistent. And my attention span was a bit short. So I think she had a little less to worry about. I mean, and we had a neighborhood that was not the best one to grow up in. And she moved us because she didn't want me to get sucked in to some of the activities or the surveillance or the police work. Police work. That's the nicest way I could put it.
Police work.
That was a really kind euphemism.
The po-po.
By the way, this is off topic, but I was also in Boy Scouts, and I think that's why you and I were both so unsuccessful with getting girlfriends. I think it was the Boy Scouts that was just stuck to us.
Yeah.
They could always tell.
So you had a very strict family.
Strictish, yeah. I was in Boy Scouts forever, and we didn't really have TV growing up, and it was a Christian conservative environment.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you feel oppressed?
I felt left out of a lot of stuff. And now that I've gotten older, some of it I'm glad I missed. Some of it I wish that I hadn't. I missed a lot of cartoons, a lot of movies, a lot of pop references.
There's a cultural
yeah. But then the advantage, though, is back to Brandon's point, I read a lot. Yeah. I read so many. I read Lord of the Rings enough. My parents took it away from me because I couldn't read it anymore.
Good.
But I think the children should be given space to grow and experiment, especially among themselves. And maybe that's why some phone access removal isn't so bad, because the socialization you want children to have is probably mostly happening still offline, even in the digital era.
Well, see, that's why I wonder, because nobody on this panel is young enough to actually have grown up with smartphones.
No.
That is a huge shift, though. That supercomputer in bed with you, as you say, Barantone. That is a massive shift, a complete connection to the internet at all times.
I mean, if it's not healthy for us, and no one here is going to say Twitter is good for us, back to our earlier point, it can't be good for children. And so my question isn't just how to spy on their web usage, but when is it okay to say, now you're old enough for X or versus Y? Now, with video games, it's very easy to tell.
No, that's a tough one, too.
Well, no, hang on.
It is tough,
when it comes to violence and gore and so forth, I don't think it's that hard. Now, when it comes to like addictiveness, I agree it's more difficult. But social media, I mean, how old would you let your kids start? Like 15, 13, 28, 35?
But what if this is the future, that generation, this is how they're going to socialize. This is how life is going to be for them. Wouldn't you want them to have the skills to navigate that world?
I mean, the world, even in the future, is still going to be IRL and digital, right?
Is it?
Yes, always. Because why did I come up here today?
Our 15-year-old will send his friends home so he can play games with them on the internet. He has a good friend who's a neighbor.
Yeah.
And he says, go home. I want to play online with you. It's more... That's better for him than having him in person.
But to be clear, though, they're doing comms real time.
They're communicating, but it's online.
That doesn't bother me at all.
You think that's in IRL a little bit?
Yeah, because that's a synchronous phone conversation that we used to have on phones that we now just have on headsets. Like, I do that with my friends. We play Destiny 2.
Yeah, but I remember it, and I know you do, Philip, our generation bemoaning teenagers spending so much time on the phone, right? There was something wrong with them.
Or watching television.
Or watching
Racking
TV.
up the phone bill.
There's always been something like that.
Three-way calling.
Before then, it was probably like, they're on the radio so much, they're not reading books.
Exactly.
And before that, it was like, they're reading books, they should write their own books.
Jeff Jarvis brings this up every time. When printing became commonplace, people were very concerned that their imagination wasn't developing because they were reading so much and being told what to imagine.
Well, my favorite anecdote by this... Please, go for it.
So I think radio, rock and roll, books, TV, magazines, film, all this imagination land stuff. That's a scary book, by the way, Imagination Land.
I just got it. I can't wait.
I wonder, for me, it sometimes comes down to scale, right? Is there something categorically different about these networked technologies from the previous sort of broadcast technologies? Because access to books, access to music, access to printed materials is something very different from access to like ubiquitous communication and the ability for everyone to not just download information, but to upload it and to engage in conversation. And probably amazing, magical things are going to happen with the next generations of people who are growing up in this.
Or they're going to live in the basement.
Right. And terrible things too. Right. I talk about racist and all sorts of extremist recruitment. That's true. The Parkland students also reached out to students in Chicago to organize that march.
Yep.
And they were able to demonstrate a level of empathy that was previously so expensive.
Yeah.
To find someone in another city who had experienced the same tragedy as you and to build a coalition with them would have taken so much effort, so much money, so much time, and it's pretty much free now.
That's an excellent point. Parkland is the counterexample.
Myself about like so much panic. I just think we should brace ourselves for a level of extreme good and extreme bad that we haven't experienced historically because the power wasn't distributed as widely as it is now.
Yeah, I'm still net positive on the internet as an impact on society by far. I just think we're dealing with some new kinks and issues that were always coming, but we didn't know. And so now we need to build new tooling to combat them and deal with these issues. I mean, from the start of the show with data privacy all the way through to this, issue of watching children, I mean, we'll get through this and we'll still be net positive, I think, in the end.
The Parkland students that was just a wonderful example of, they were so sophisticated
They were
so
media literate, weren't
media
they?
literate.
Yeah.
They were better on media than the TV people were.
Yeah,
so they took over the stage. And these are kids who grew up with cell phones and
But also their school had classes about civic engagement, right? So they weren't just Gen Y digital natives, they were Gen Y digital natives with training. And that combination took over every single cable news network, it took over the blogs, it took over the whole conversation. And if that's what we're going to be able to see the kids do, then bring it on, because we don't need people like, I don't know, look at the leadership of the GOP and the Democrats right now. They're all ancient. We need some new blood. I'm in favor of it.
We didn't get to the most important announcement Apple made on Monday, which is Memoji, but we'll get to that in just a second. Baratunde Thurston is here. Hashtag Manifestunde. You find it all at baratunde.com. Always a pleasure to see you, Baratunde.
You too, Leo. It was a pleasure to hear your voice at the same time as you're uttering, like a synchronous loop.
It's a magical thing.
Speaking of which,
Max Headroom here. Yeah. Is your girlfriend using the internet right now? By the way, there might be something in this. My mom I didn't know any girls when I was young, because I went to a boys only school in 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, and I knew no girls. And I do think that was a benefit. Of course, in 10th grade, I went to Santa Cruz High in 1971. Let me tell you, I knew girls. That changed everything. But I think at that formative period, I was stunted.
Is that why we're all on a tech show right now?
Yes.
I see.
Speak for yourself.
I knew no girls.
Philip's over here. I was just crushing
You knew some women. Our show today, Philip Elmer-DeWitt, PED30.com. And, of course, from Crunchbase News, Editor-in-Chief Alex Wilhelm. Have more in just a second, but first a word from WordPress. If one thing that's a healthy thing you can get your kids to do that's digital, and I say this because both my children just this month asked me to help them set up their websites. Get them a website at WordPress.com. That's where both Abby and Henry are. Henry came to me and said, he's a photographer and a videographer, and he said, they're squeezing my pictures. The quality's terrible. Is there somewhere you could put images that... I said, yes, your own website. Your Facebook page is not your own. Your Instagram is not your own. Your website, that's your own. So he's at WordPress.com. Same thing with Abby. I want to put up my portfolio, my resume. She's starting to look for work, and that's the way to do it, WordPress.com. Actually, I sent her to WordPress.com/twit because she gets 15% off, so that's a good thing. WordPress, that's where my site is, leolaporte.com. Everybody I know, when it comes to getting a website up fast and easy, when you want to focus on content, not on CSS, WordPress.com. You don't need to do the coding, the design. They give you all the tools you need, hundreds of beautiful templates. I was kind of touched. My daughter completely spontaneously picked the same template as me. There's hundreds. I mean, it wasn't like she had 3 to choose from. We both picked 2017. It's a very nice template. I highly recommend it. She kind of laughed. She said, what? You're using that too? Yeah. Now, if you want to sell stuff, and Henry does, he says, I want to sell pictures. I said, great. WordPress has powerful e-commerce options. You can get a buy button, simple, or have a complete online store. It's up to you. It's very affordable. They're just starting out, $4 a month. Great deal. I have the business plan, which is a great deal for me because I got lots more templates, lots more plugins, help with SEO. I love the social sharing. If you're a business or you want others to help spread the word about what you're up to, my daughter's a poet. She does spoken word stuff, and she's doing poetry reading. She wants to spread the word. This social sharing is great because it means other people will post about it on their Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and that really helps get the word out. 30% of all the websites in the world run on WordPress. That's not an accident. It's because it's the best. WordPress.com. You'll get 15% off any new plan purchase if you go to WordPress.com/twit. Please go to WordPress.com/twit to create your brand new website. WordPress.com/twit. 15% off. It's the best. WordPress.
Adding an addendum to that. Everything that I've ever written for has been WordPress based, I think.
As a content management
system.
TechCrunch is WordPress.
TechCrunch is WordPress. Crunchbase News, WordPress.
Moving
to a new design, also WordPress.
You're probably on the VIP platform?
I think TC is. Crunchbase News is small, so we don't need VIP.
You don't need the VIP.
No.
Yeah.
Apple 3.0, WordPress.
There you go.
I'd used WordPress since Matt Mullenweg started it way back when. I was at the time I was on remember Movable Type?
Oh yeah, I do.
Yes.
I was on Movable Type and
plugins. Remember plugins?
Those bad times.
And then
dark time.
And then along comes WordPress, and I said, "This is awesome." So I've been using it more than a decade.
When Gutenberg finally comes out and is fully released, and that comes up on Twitter, I want to come on and talk about it.
What's Gutenberg?
It's the new typing section. So WordPress at the back end, you have kind of the similar like interface where you kind of type your blogs. I think Gutenberg is the next iteration of that, and it's supposed to be pretty fantastic.
It's a new editor.
I have yet to use it, but I'm really excited about eventually getting my hands on it because using plugins and so forth to change how your WordPress install handles formatting and options is a pain in the butt. And this is hopefully going to be what I've been looking for roughly 9,000 posts now. So I'm pretty stoked.
But here's the feature they don't tell you about. The only thing you can write in Gutenberg is a Bible. So
rough times, man.
Firing on all cylinders now.
We already have one, man. There's a whole Bible. It's long. I've read it. Jeez, it takes forever.
You've memorized it, dude.
No. Just the names of the books. That was confirmation days.
I love it because when they have Bible questions on Jeopardy, I can answer them. And my wife says, "You're an atheist. You shouldn't answer those questions."
No, we're an atheist.
It's literature.
We're an atheist because we can answer those questions. Yes. And if you don't get that joke, I'm sorry. If you're offended by it, I'm not sorry, but you're great. All right, moving on.
He grew up on Davy and Goliath.
I grew up on VeggieTales, yes.
And VeggieTales. I grew up on Davy and Goliath.
There you go.
So let's. I guess we should mention memojis.
I think we have to.
By the way, right after the digital well-being segment where they're talking about digital health and using the phone less, and they announced memojis. It was as if there was an irony to this whole event.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There must be people who use these things. I think we're not the right audience. I've sent animojis to my kids and gotten 0 back. It's not something my kids are using.
That's like saying I sent a Facebook request to my kids and they didn't accept it. Right? I think they're trying to tell you something.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
I assume it's because 70% of teens have iPhones. Is a stat I came across that I hope was right.
It is true. It's in the U.S. only, but it's amazing. And 80% say if they don't have one, they want one.
Wow, so they're the status symbol among teens.
It's the thing to have.
Yeah, these are the Piper Jaffray stats are a little funky because they're interviewing kids in high-income high schools.
Oh, well, of course.
Oh, well, that's ridiculous then.
Yeah.
That's so.
Here's Serenity Caldwell.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Using emojis to lip sync Kendrick Lamar.
Well, it's SZA, right?
And SZA. So. Actually, what's interesting about this is
put it on her bar?
That's how they work. So you make a memoji and you draw it. It doesn't take it from a picture. You actually create it with a Mr. Potato Head style kit.
Sure, they did it in the
it's very cool. And then, but then when you use it, it superimposes the memoji. I'm sorry about the audio; it's not good. It superimposes the memoji on top of you and your body and your room. So it is kind of. It looks like you're wearing one of those mascot heads,
but so it's like you're inside of Roger Rabbit.
Oh gosh, that's a picture.
So this is who uses it. The iMore crew loves memojis.
I don't like this.
It's gonna be fun.
I got over Bitmojis. I still use emojis, but I think that's the end of my OGing because I can't take more stuff. I don't know about y'all, but is anyone else here busy? Like has stuff to do
Apparently
and therefore
not.
doesn't look at this and go, yes!
This is what I do in the middle of the night.
Oh, this is what you do?
No.
This explains a lot.
You can't do memojis in the middle of the night. It's dark.
After the keynote, rather than going to the demos, I went and talked to the developers who were in line.
Oh, what a good idea.
And they were
novel thought.
Yeah. They were pretty harsh about memojis.
Really?
Yeah, they said, listen, there was no improvement of the apps that people actually use. There was nothing about phone. There was nothing about
stocks.
Calendar.
Why are you?
Well, they
leaving
did
out
do
the
stocks,
okay.
but and then why are they doing this stuff that nobody uses?
Because it sells phones.
It must be.
And if you're a developer, what you should want is more phones sold. That broadens your base. I think you could argue with them. Now, guys, this isn't for you.
Yeah.
This is for the average Joe. I don't know why I'm looking at you. The average Joe who, you can't do this on an Android phone, and this sells phones.
Well, Samsung will copy it in about 3 weeks.
Actually, they're copying Samsung.
Oh.
Yeah.
But the Samsung one is creepy because it uses your picture.
I'm very excited about this. What is the Samsung one called? Actually, I have friends that work for Samsung.
It comes
now.
on the S9. You have to have an S9. Let me see. I have a whole library, if I can find them, of images I created so I can show you. It's Uncanny Valley because
does everybody know what Uncanny Valley is?
We talk about it a lot. I bet you most of our audience does. But that's the idea that, here's the Uncanny Valley. If you...
who is that supposed to be?
That's me. It took a picture of me.
Ooh.
It looks like Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
It looks.
I did not have sex with that woman.
Dutch politician Geert Wilders. Looks like
Well,
him.
it depends what is. Oh my God. The Star Report just won't end.
That looks like you mixed with Sean Hannity.
I think there's a little bit, I'm going to say a little Anderson Cooper.
The skin's moving.
This is the Uncanny Valley where it's humans have a very finely attuned biology to detect normal and abnormal because somebody who's slightly abnormal could get you sick. And so, evolutionarily, I think that we've discovered that the people survive better if they can detect somebody who's a zombie. And so we can tell, and it makes us very uncomfortable when it's close to human but not.
Yeah, and that's the valley.
The valley is where it's cartoons. Pixar looks great because they're not trying to look like a cartoon. But as soon as you get to Polar Express, where it's Tom Hanks, it's creepy because it's closer.
But not close enough. You have to get 100% or no more than 75%. It's that last quarter.
So the Apple opted, I think, wisely to do the cartoon version.
Yeah.
Samsung
almost like you.
Samsung's doing the.
There was one thing that I liked out of WWDC that we haven't touched on, and maybe you think it's not as big a deal, but the idea of these Siri-powered shortcuts.
Oh, that's
that
to me the biggest
string
story.
Together, essentially like automator workflow types of functions to make sure your house is ready when you get home if you have an automated house, which I don't, or if you want to fire up some other operation that you can get directions, you can find a recipe, and it'll talk to multiple apps in a sequence to accomplish a more complex task. I love that idea of if this then thatifying your iPhone and your iPad.
Of course, we'll see, once they implement it. And I signed up for the public beta, but 12 isn't yet in the public beta channel, but it will soon. But for the longest time, I've actually made a bifurcation between Android and Apple. Apple and an iPhone, I recommended to people who didn't want to fuss with their phone. They just kind of wanted it to work. They weren't invested in tweaking it or the capabilities of it. Android is more for people who like to customize, who want power. They want interact.
Like malware.
Yeah. Well, okay, but with great power comes great responsibility.
That's true, Leo. That was an unfair dig.
It's a hand-in-hand thing. I mean, the more open a platform is, the more risky it is.
Right.
Apple made a walled garden. It's not very risky, but it's also not particularly adventurous, except... To me, this is a big leap for Apple, and this may actually put them in the territory of making a phone operating system that I think everybody will want to use, because this is essentially adding programmability to iOS
without coding.
And that means you can make it, and this is where Google had such an advantage with things like Google Now, where it'd say, well, I see you're going to the airport, you got airplane tickets, I saw that in your email, and that means you're going to be going to the airport, you should probably leave now because traffic's bad. That was a very valuable tool. Apple doesn't want to do that because they don't want to look at your email. But this is the beginning of that kind of power, and I think they've done it in an interesting way.
I see it as their answer to Amazon's Echo.
Yep. Siri is stupid. It's always been a laggard. What better way to make Siri smart than add capabilities from other apps?
Now Siri has one thing it can do. Fantastic. This new set of things.
It can stitch together apps.
Yeah. Okay. What they haven't solved with Siri is it understanding what I'm saying when I say it.
It has to get better at that. But.
Yeah. So they put some work into it. It's not clear that they put the work where it was desperately needed.
Well, they bought an app called Workflow, and I think 90% of this is Workflow.
Yeah.
It'll here's the things it'll depend on. Yes, Siri has to understand you. That's number one. Developers have to add this capability to their apps because a lot of it relies on. For instance, they did an example where Siri knows that this woman stops every morning to get a disgusting sounding drink called a mint mojito at Phil's Coffee.
Actually, very, very, very good.
Is it?
It's fantastic.
Oh, it sounds like
get it Phil's way. It's fantastic. It's like $4. Get a small. You'll be wired. It's delightful.
But I'm assuming it has no rum in it.
No. Otherwise, I wouldn't be drinking it. But like, it's got little bits of mint on top. It's fantastic.
Is mint mojito redundant? All mojitos have mint.
All good mojitos have mint. You could abuse a mojito into not having mint, I think.
Okay, and not abused mojito. So, but what's interesting is that's the Phil's app that is interacting with Siri. So she has the Phil's app. The Phil's app knows she orders this coffee because she's ordering it through the app. Siri communicates with the Phil's app. Siri communicates with you saying the Phil's app told me, in effect, you get this mint mojito. Would you like me to order it? You say yes. It then contacts the Phil's app. So if developers do that, that is huge.
If that begins to knit together the various disparate parts of my phone in a way that's intelligent and helps me do things and is not creepy, then I will be the happiest clam in the sea. I'm worried about poor implementation. I'm worried about it being a little pushy.
Of
but
course.
Things will work on.
The details
I'm excited about
it. We'll see.
It's more explicitly. It seems to me like it's more explicitly directed by the user than black box magic from the Google Assistant, for example.
Let's be fair. What Apple's really done is strategically brilliant. They've said, we'll not collect any information on you. We'll let the apps do that.
And we'll let you be the one who weaves it together.
Yeah. But, I mean, the Phil's app knows exactly where you've been, what you're doing, what time of the day it is, and what you order. So
that's kind of cool because it's a distributed, it's not, no one has a concentrated amount of data power over
Okay,
it.
good point.
Phil's only knows my fake mojito preferences. Right. They have no idea about my commute, for example.
Right.
Right, and it solves the discoverability problem that Amazon has. There may be 10,000 things it can do, but how do I know what they are?
Right.
And
presumably, if you install a Phil's app and use Phil's a lot, you don't have to do anything else. Siri will see that and then give you stuff that you can act on. I think that's great. I think potentially to me, this might be the single most important feature on the iPhone since it was released.
If
it all works.
Can work.
Well, it's the first one that'll change the way we actually interact with our phones. I mean, the iPhone, for all its spit and polish over the years, is still a grid of apps that do single things. This can actually bring them together in a way that's going to be
precisely
and fantastic. And I'm giddy about this as a daily iPhone user for a long time. Give me something that helps me that isn't just memojis or dark mode. Those are nice little things, but not really the core of what I want.
But what's it called when you create a sequence of steps for the computer? We've been doing that for years on the Mac.
A program?
Algorithm?
Well, I sent a note to Sal Segoyan, who was the guy who really, created AppleScript and made it what it is. He invented Automator. He was the king of scripting at Apple. And Apple fired him about a year ago. They said, your position has been eliminated. And here it is, ironically, that exactly the workflow stuff that Sal was espousing at Apple for so many years in iOS. And I sent a note to him and said, you must be both gratified and sad.
And did he respond?
Not yet. I'm waiting. But it must be tough for him because that's exactly, I think he's going to be gratified. He's got a great job. He went over to Omni Group and is doing great stuff there, on automation, by the way.
There's a lot of knives being wielded in the background. What's going on in your kitchen?
Dinner stuff's happening.
Okay.
Yeah, as promised.
How nice.
Do we think we're going to see something kind of like the if this then that for like iPhone devs then?
He's so subtle.
Distracted. I want to focus.
He just moved the camera just so slightly.
And my words, and that was happening. That's the background. So
That's professional. That was smooth.
They will have no idea. Yeah.
So I'm kind of excited about this.
Yeah, I'm stoked. Bring it on. Yeah. But iOS 12 is still not even public beta yet, so this is all pre-announced stuff.
Yeah, this is so frustrating because you hear it all in June, and it all looks great.
This is the part for developers,
right? I know, but I want to use the stuff, but I don't want to use it
yet, sir.
Right. So by the time fall comes around and it's out, I've forgotten everything I learned in June, and it's hard to get up to speed.
Remind you. I don't think they're shy about letting you know why you should use their stuff. There'll be some new videos. They'll update the websites. They'll push the software update and remind you why it's somehow better than the last one.
And yet,
I have faith.
I can think of many examples of Apple creating a great technology. Automator is a good one. And just letting it die, and not getting adoption, and just kind of it going away. And so many times we've seen an Apple event where I've gotten really excited. This is going to change everything. ARKit is a good example. When ARKit was announced a year ago, we saw all these toy apps and demos on Twitter, and everybody was excitedly doing that. Can you name the great AR app of the last year on iOS?
Measure
was huge. Blew up. No, but the point is absolutely not. I mean, people have been talking about AR for consumers since before HoloLens. And so far as I can tell, the only app that ever really brought that to the mass market was Pokemon Go.
Now, Apple demoed what might be the route they think this is going to go when they had the two people with the slingshots.
That was kind of interesting.
Knocking over
Shared
the blocks.
AR. Yeah. The idea of sharing of an augmented reality from multiple perspectives across multiple people is really interesting for design work, for architectural work, and all kinds of planning for games. Probably for stuff I can't riff off the top of my head right now.
The games could be huge. You could see that it'll pretty quickly move from blocks to dystopian worlds where you've got railguns and you're shooting at people.
Here's Renee, Ritchie, and I, Justine. This is the sad part: is if you're not in the game, this is what you see: is
it's not great.
Two people focused on an empty table.
Hallucination.
Yeah,
like money.
But they are having fun. A couple of questions. One is, how long before your arms get tired? Because you have to hold this in front of you to see it. But maybe that's not a problem.
There was a wonderful moment in the John Gruber had a show the day after, and they had the vice president of AR for Apple there, who explained what the new USDZ thing is, which was very interesting.
It's a new format with Adobe that Adobe and Apple are putting together.
Actually, it's a Pixar format.
I'm sorry, Pixar, not Adobe.
Pixar, it's universal scene description that Pixar has created and is the standard. And what the Z is zipping, so they make it small. And it's what they want. It's going to be the PDF of...
Right. It's a wrapper,
AR.
which is interesting. So the file formats inside can vary.
Yeah, and you can drop it into another program. If this creates a new generation of interactive 3D immersive games that only work on Apple devices, it could be a big thing for them. You can sort of see porn applications maybe.
Never, because Apple controls it.
And Apple's not fun.
Apple is not.
Oh, you may be right.
That video we just showed of Renee and I, Justine, reminds me a little bit of the old Palm Pilot days, because I was a super cool teenager, as we've gone over. And the Palm Pilots had these little IR ports at the top, and you could point two Palm Pilots at each other and play games with the other person that was there. And it was kind of janky. It didn't really work that well, but it pretty much worked. You could play like ping pong and whatnot, and air hockey. And I would sit there with my friend who had another Palm Pilot, and we would do this for hours. And so I think the whole idea of bringing people together in the real world to do a digital experience together is something that we haven't seen for a long time, but it has a lot of potential. And if it does work the way they're hoping it does, I'm actually, I hate to sound positive about Apple, but pretty excited. That's cool.
Alex, I will give you what I think is the best example of this. Imagine AR Space Team.
Yeah.
Ooh, Space Team is fun. That's
Dropping
the one.
My augmented reality microphone.
Yeah.
But tell people who don't know what Space Team is, tell them why that example actually works so well.
It's what you described. It is a multiplayer IRL and digital game. So you are with up to 3 or 4 other people, all crew on the bridge of a spaceship.
It's so much fun.
And you have to follow commands, some of which are for people who have controls adjacent to you. So you'll get a command, you have to yell it out, people have to be paying attention, and the commands are absurd things like fire the endoplasmic reticulator. And so it's fun.
You've clearly played this game many times.
Oh, yeah. I think it's solid team building skills, honestly. and so instead of being limited to the tiny space of your smartphone screen, you could do it on a canvas of a blank table, like you just showed with the iJustine.
We did have a VR version of a Star Trek bridge game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That was kind of cool.
Because I did the VR helmet game. That was the bomb you had to undo on this show. That was so hard.
Yeah. By the way, none of this is new. Here's a picture of Steve Wozniak and his wife Janet about 8 years ago on their Nintendo Game Boys connected by a wire. They're playing Tetris with each other. Isn't that cute?
That's adorable.
Isn't that cute?
They have Apple Watches on. When was this done?
No, those are not Apple Watches. Those are Fitbits.
One of them
Those are Fitbits.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
but the one on Waz's left wrist is his famous Nixie watch, which has Nixie tubes. The thing is huge.
What is a Nixie tube?
That's those. Remember the old segmented displays where you'd have numbers and each one was in a tube?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's actually how his watch works.
That just sounds like never mind. I'm
it's
not gonna.
pretty geeky.
Waz is a higher bishop in technology, so I'm not going to make fun of his watch choice.
He
That's
is,
a bad idea.
That watch choice defines his higher bishopric. Here is his other game he likes to play. As long as we're at Waz Pictures, this was a cruise we took with Waz to South America. He gets $2 bills from the mint and binds them into a pad. And his whole game that he plays, there's the Nixie watch, a little bit better picture of the Nixie watch. The whole game that he plays is he tries to use these to buy stuff, and he wants them to arrest him.
Yes.
He wants them to say that's counterfeit. Yeah. And so he has them on pads. Sometimes he'll take them on whole sheets and scissor them. I guess you can get uncut sheets if you're Waz anyway from the Treasury. So he uses scissors and he says, "No, this is this. What is?" He has a funny phrase he uses, like this is approved legal tender of.
So if you want to hear more about this, I can tell you where to get it. Go read iWaz, his book.
It's awesome.
It's not the best written book because he's not a writer, but there's a lot of good anecdotes about this sort of thing in there.
He loves pranks.
And it's evidence, yes, exactly, that maturity does not come with billions. Because you can have many billions and still be a total prankster.
Yep.
It's not a bad book.
Yep.
The chat room reminds me, I started to talk about Gruber's after
the talk show, yeah.
Yeah, and at one point, we're dealing with this thing where you're holding up the thing. And he said, now you guys have been talking for years about you're not going to make a touchscreen Mac because it's unnatural to be pointing a finger.
Right.
But now you're telling us to walk around like this.
Yeah.
And so clearly the conclusion is that it makes much more sense to have this technology in your glasses.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're a long way
It's
from
not there yet.
Yeah. But it reminds me
we could have neck harnesses where we put our
I want a little tray, a little brace that just holds the iPad.
Oh,
I bet you there'll be a brisk aftermarket.
You would look so cool like
Yeah.
this. This is fantastic. I've never looked better than I do right now.
Yeah. Goes around your neck. Just aluminum tube.
I'm on the board of this organization. It's build.org. Shout out to the kids.
Yeah.
And they use entrepreneurship to help kids stay in school. And one of the teams made a smartphone holder that literally is like you put this thing around your neck. It's really lightweight. Perfect. And it's so you can basically like watch YouTube while you're walking to school.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
perfect.
Okay, now I'm gonna go back and change my answer.
Hands-free distraction.
This is great. This is build.
I'm now in favor of more parental controls after hearing that story on our smartphones.
Oh, there you go.
I take it back.
Got it, ladies and gentlemen. He's down with the man, aka.
That's brilliant. Kids are always smarter than adults. I think in the end, it's encouraging for the future.
I hope so. God. Otherwise, we're in trouble.
I have a topic I want to talk about.
Apple TV's Atmos support?
No.
What? Well, whatever would you like to talk about, Philip Elmer?
I wanted to talk about a little line that got tucked in when they were talking about the great apps that they were going to bring to iOS to the Mac. And maybe that wasn't the context, but this woman named Susan, they didn't give her a last name, said, we're doing this and we're doing that, but the very best thing is we're bringing Apple News to stocks so that the Apple News stories are going to be curated by Apple's editors. And my thought is, there's no more business news feed that's more polluted by FUD and fanboyism than Apple. And it should be curated, but not by Apple. I mean, you could be an editor with the best heart in mind, but there's no way to be in Apple's employ and to treat Apple News, to curate Apple News in a fair and even-handed way.
Are you saying that they would be biased in how they would curate the news about the company for which they work?
They would be. They would feel like their hands were tied. I worked for Time Inc. for a long time, and there was no story you didn't want to be assigned than a Time Warner business story because it would get edited, by layers of editor all the way up to the top, and then it would get killed.
The lawyers are going to see it. Well, and furthermore, anybody who's editing this working at Apple also has Apple stocks, so they're conflicted by the very nature.
No, they shouldn't even get into it.
And
I thought that was weird enough.
By the way, there's no stock app or website in the world that doesn't have news. It's not an invention.
No, they're getting into the commodity business. They're gonna.
Yeah, I got to say though, in defense of Apple News, it is the single best way to find out what's going on an iPhone. The Apple curated news thing. They're scraping the right content. It's fairly well balanced. They throw in some Fox News. And it turns out,
really, that's your definition?
Well,
of
for
well
me,
balanced.
it exposes me to things I'm not
Throw in
seeing by
some Fox
reading
News.
the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and
what have you used the new Google News?
I get Google News on my
No. You have to install the
application.
new Google News app.
I have to,
and I want you to compare that to the Apple app.
Okay, I will.
Because it's very similar.
Is it mirrored at Google News.google.com, Leo?
No.
Or is this only a mobile
They
experience?
took the old Newsstand app and they renamed it Google News. And what you get is a curated 5-story for you that's based on what your interests are and your
right.
And by the way, they know my location, so there's a local news story and stuff. But then each story has a button on it that is full coverage. And at that point, it's no longer curated. They say everybody will see the same thing.
And do they have a pay the journalist button as well?
Yeah, I wish they did, because they are, after all, scraping. But I think, nowadays, companies understand that sending them traffic is something of value. So if you go to headlines, you're getting the same headlines everybody else is getting. And I kind of like that. I think that mixes the value of an algorithmic feed with having a common point of view.
Yeah.
You have favorites so you can control it, and they've kept the subscription newsstand in there.
And actually, Leo, it is mirrored on the web. I just went to news.google.com.
It's the same.
And in the left rail, top stories for you, favorites, saved searches, which I think is the same as your bot.
Thank you for the correction. So you can now do it on the web.
Yeah, well,
So I have. Oh yeah, it is the same
Google
stories.
News.
Yeah.
It's
so that's
good.
the new Google News. It's interesting. I didn't realize they'd put it on the web as well.
But this is for average people, right? This is aimed at the masses. Is that correct?
It's aimed at, see, all of us are, to one degree or another, professionally interested in the current news. Right. So we have different habits and
right, because I downloaded Google News when it came out for my phone, and it was immediately like, this is just clunky and slow. I would need my Twitter feed now. But then, now that I think about it in this context, this is not designed for me. This is designed for...
it's not a fire hose.
No. It's just far too slow for what I'd like.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I still have a folder of news bookmarks that I one by one go through each morning.
That is old-fashioned.
But everyone who's ever edited a front page appreciates you.
Well, but that's what I do. I have tech memes #1, and then Nuzzle, and then Reddit, and then I do have
Apple 3.0 is right up.
Yeah, right up there. Medium. I always read Medium. I do have Feedly, right, which is a traditional news reader, but nobody uses. Does anybody use news readers like this anymore?
It was a better era, but the answer appears to be no. We've all moved to social feeds.
That's such a mistake. Twitter is a bad place to get your news.
Twitter is a bad place for everybody, but we all go there. I'll be there the whole way home.
I stopped doing it. I think it's polluting my brain.
How did you stop, though?
I took it off my phone.
And then how'd you not reinstall it? It's like quitting cigarettes for me. Like It
is very much like that.
I can mostly do it, but I just...
It's almost exactly like that.
It's tough.
Because I check in with how I feel after I read Twitter. And I always feel upset. I always feel there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of outrage. It's gotten worse. I think some of our national psychosis can be directly attributed to the bully in chief on Twitter. I feel like...
Leo, you're following the wrong Twitter. You got to get in on that cupcake Twitter.
Everybody tells me that. Everybody tells me that.
Puppy Twitter, amazing.
But I got to tell you this. Follow Cupcake Twitter or Puppy Twitter or whatever dopey Twitter you want to follow, and it won't be long before there's Cupcake Wars.
No. Dog Twitter is actually pretty good. There's never been a war in dog Twitter except for when Brandt tried to make fun of dog rates. That's an inside joke. But mostly Cupcake Twitter is fine, and I think you can find sub
How do you find Cupcake Twitter or dog Twitter?
You find the people that engage in cupcake or dog
and you unfollow all the rest of them?
You just build them into your feed. Like, you know Darth?
So, yes, I know Darth.
Okay, so Darth is an example of weird Twitter that you can bring into your life to bring some light to your feed. And I think that we could all do that a little bit more. I just follow 6,000 journalists, which is why my feed's awful.
I have a lot of news in my feed. I have a lot of news in my feed.
Our tribe is not exactly known for not fighting.
And I just, first of all, the algorithmic portion of Twitter has really screwed things up There is no way to do a chronological feed anymore.
You can through Tweetin, which is a TweetDeck derivative.
Okay.
At Tweetin app on
I do
Twitter.
use Tweetin, and TweetDeck I use as well.
Those both still have
Actually, one of the tips that somebody told me for TweetDeck, and does clean up Twitter a lot, TweetDeck allows you to turn off retweets. And so a lot of the stuff that's bad on Twitter is the viral retweeting of outrageous. I'm going to take out my tweets and all this so we just focus on the one column. But without the retweets in there, you actually get a little bit better content. But I'm telling you, 10 tweets in and I'm angry. My gut's churning.
I got a tweet for you.
You're going to tweet me?
I tweeted.
You're checking to see if I'm following you?
You are following me. There it is. Excellent.
But I already am following you.
But that's for everyone else who's on the feed.
Oh.
So I didn't mean to bring us back to Twitter. I didn't mean to.
This is a polluted. I'm sorry, but this is a polluted stream. I don't care if you mix some fresh water into the excrement. It's still a polluted stream.
But it is the stream to which I still drink from. So if I'm going to have to drink the crappy
water, that means
water,
your brain is polluted.
My brain. If you've met me, you know that. I'm just saying, like that's where I have to swim. I am a journalist. This is what I do all day.
I disagree. I think that's the worst place for a journalist to swim. In fact, it drives me crazy that I see this across the board, even in mainstream media. Oh my God, this is outrageous. Everybody's pissed off about this, that, or the other. They're looking at Twitter, where everybody's pissed off about everything all the time. Any journalist that is measuring the value or importance of a story or people's reaction to it by what they see in their Twitter feed is making a massive error.
I'm so glad you did that in your Twitter voice. That's what Twitter sounds like. That level of this is what Twitter is like. You will like it. Short sentences.
That was get off my lawn voice.
Wait, can we get Barrington?
But isn't that the case though, that a lot of mainstream media now, if it's got action on Twitter, that's a news story?
Absolutely.
That's dopey.
Have you watched The Fourth Estate?
No.
It's
I've heard of
a
The
year
Fourth
of the New York Times.
Oh, I want to watch this. I saw
it's
that.
incredible. The first episode is amazing because it's all Trump gets elected and seeing how the New York Times covers it. And one of the things they do visually is you see Maggie Haberman writing a story and someone kibitzing her, and the words are actually appearing on the screen as she types them, and then the tweets start appearing about how and the numbers of tweets that got retweeted, and then she's on Morning Joe talking about
Maggie,
it. So
by the way, Maggie Haberman is one of the people I consider ruined by Twitter.
Well,
I think Twitter has destroyed her credibility as a journalist. She's posted stuff on Twitter she by now deeply regrets. Twitter has been a bane to somebody who used to be a good reporter.
She has. I've just watched her gain weight.
And I blame it on Twitter.
All the last 30 seconds is problematic, but let's if you're watching this, I didn't say any of that. Too, ignoring that entire comment.
Whoa, she's gotten so much trouble for the things she has tweeted.
Which things has she tweeted do you think that got her in trouble? I'm curious about the specific examples, or at least the range.
I'm going to have to do this after the show.
Fine, that's fair enough.
It's political. Okay. It's not technical. But I will show you a number of tweets that she deeply regrets. I'm sure if she doesn't, then she's an idiot.
In the process of the show, they had to take one of the reporters' tweets away from him.
Take Twitter away from everybody. That's my motto.
The president doesn't. That's great.
Well, by the way, if I tweeted some of the stuff the president tweets, I would be banned from Twitter.
Yeah, he's violated the terms of service.
He's allowed to be a bully, and by the way, a bully with nuclear weapons on Twitter. Is that not in and of itself a problem?
At Jack Pliz. I mean, you can.
I don't get. Jack doesn't give a damn. Are you kidding me?
That was the joke.
Yeah.
Actually, I like Jack. Do the ad.
I don't know Jack.
Who's Jack?
Jack Dorsey.
Let's get away from the weird comments and back to screaming at Google.
Is he still CEO? Is he CEO?
Yes, and the stock's done very well in the last 12 months, and they've shown GAAP profits and rising usership. So #GoJack.
Really, rising usership?
Slowly. That's what's going up.
How much rising?
Is it going up or is it going down? My statement stands. This has been a troublesome 4 minutes. I think we should.
Yeah.
Why?
I'm
you
with
have
Alex.
stock in Twitter?
No, the preceding bits.
Why does anybody want to defend Twitter? That's what I don't understand.
It's not about defending Twitter. It's about moving away from the crater in the ground.
That is Twitter. I rest my case.
I live in the.
It sucks everything into its black hole maw.
So I think maybe instead of avoiding Twitter. We should have Leo avoid talking about Twitter, which seems to be even more upsetting using Twitter itself.
Okay.
And we have so much other news. There's a new Gmail coming out.
Yeah, no, we're going to talk about all that. In fact, we're going to get away from Apple. Yeah, we got to get away from Apple because we spent this whole show on Apple, and there's a lot more to talk about. We will
big
do
week
that.
for them.
Yeah, in just a little bit. But first I want to talk about Anthony Bourdain, who, of course, died this week, committed suicide, very sadly. Same age as me exactly. It's just a great tragedy. And it made me think, I got to go back and read his book, Kitchen Confidential. But I've got the best way to read his book. Watch me turn this into an ad.
Yeah, careful. You're on risky ice now, Leo.
This is a strange 4 minutes still. 4 minutes of strangeness.
Audible.com. No, honestly, his book, Kitchen Confidential, his first book, has become a bestseller once again. It's back up the charts because everybody's saying, I got to read that again, or if I haven't read it, I've got to read it. But if you haven't listened to it, this is the way to consume it. Anthony Bourdain reads his own book. One of the things I like about Audible is when you hear authors in their own voice reading their books. Some people should not read, but Baratunde, you read your book, right?
Yes, I do.
And How to Be Black has particular resonance when you read it. You wouldn't want anybody else to read it, would you?
No. And given that Apple's announced dark mode, again, I just think it's perfect time to promote How to Be Black.
Let me play a little of Anthony Bourdain reading Kitchen Confidential, Adventures in the Culinary.
Needless to say, the pressure, the fear, and the anticipation in the weeks before Escoffier room were palpable. It was an open kitchen. A large window
This is
allowed
about his
customers to watch
time at the Culinary Institute of America, and he's talking about the
assigned
last
the day's
year.
workstations, reviewed the crimes and horrors and disappointments.
You know what? When I reread it, I realized this is why Bourdain was so beloved. He is great. He is honest. He's real. He's genuine. And he talks about life without pulling any punches. And I think I really admire that.
Kitchen Confidential was amazing.
Amazing book. I'll show you some other things on my... I'm reading the Robin Williams biography right now. Fascinating. And, I mentioned this. I was on a page, there's a site that gives you just the first page of a book without the name. And I was reading the first page of The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, and I thought, what is this book? I've got to read it. And I found out, I read that in high school. But I thought, I haven't heard this in a long time. Science fiction on Audible is amazing. Audible is the place to listen to great books. A great sidekick for your summer activities, hiking or sunbathing. In fact, I can't read on the beach. I got a Kindle, but it's so much better. You get some headphones on, listen to a great book while you're running, while you're road tripping. There's so many times just commuting. Audiobooks, but more audio shows, news, comedy, all sorts of great stuff. And the new app, the app's always getting better, but it has some nice new features. Send books and clips means you can share a book from your library with anyone. If they haven't listened to an Audible book before, they can listen for free. I use that all the time because I'm always talking about a book I'm listening to, and I share it with people. You can also share clips, which is really nice. So I could take that Anthony Bourdain clip and share it with you, which is fantastic. They have speed control. I know a lot of people listen to our shows at twice the speed.
Oh, gosh. What do we sound like?
Actually, the funny thing is when they come in studio and they listen, they say, you guys all sound drunk. I'm not used to you speaking at
such slow pronunciation.
Speaking slowly. Audible lets you listen faster or slower if you want, so you can tune the narration. Some people listen, like I want to relish the book. I want to do it go a little bit slower. Whisper Sync is awesome. If you have a Kindle, you can buy the book on the Kindle and listen to the book at the same time. You can see the text as you're reading. This is really a nice feature called Whisper Sync for voice. Of course, you can listen to audiobooks on your Echo. Sonos now supports Audible. I'm thanking the Lord because that means I could put my book on throughout the entire house as I wander around, do the chores, do the dishes, and keep listening. You never lose your place or miss a word. I just love. And the thing is, there's always times you're doing something that you can't hold a book, but you can listen. It recovered reading for me because I was so busy and I couldn't hold a book and I'd fall asleep at night. Now I read a couple hours a day because there's always that downtime, the time in the car, the time washing the dishes. Audible members get a credit every month, good for any audiobook, regardless of price. Unused credits roll over to the next month. So the subscription is really the right way to go. And, of course, if at any time you say, I don't like this book, you can exchange it for another, no questions asked. And Your books are yours to keep. They're in your library. I've been an Audible member since 2000 for 18 years. I have hundreds of books in my library, and I can go back and listen again and again. I just love that, including to Kitchen Confidential. So that is a nice thing, too. Here's the deal. Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial right now if you go to audible.com/twit. Or you want to do it on your phone and get the app? Text TWIT to 500-500. That's the short code. Just text, and you want to send them TWIT so they know you heard it here. Text TWIT to 500-500. So you'll get the app. And the other thing I love about this, you get the book instantly. There's no waiting for it to be delivered, no going to the bookstore. If you want to hear Anthony Bourdain now, instead of this lame show, you could just text TWIT to 500-500 and have it. Audible.com/twit. It's not lame. It's a great show. AUDIBLE.com/twit.
I love Audible. I listen to books.
Know, it's a
the
lifesaver.
longer the better. 40-hour books. I love it. It sort of organizes a whole month.
I left a book at a coffee shop yesterday that I bought in an airport and had to rebuy it on Amazon last night to have it redelivered to me so I can read the last 4 chapters. I'm actually kind of in favor of audiobooks for the first time in my life, only because I
never lose it.
I bought that book twice now and it's bad. Yeah. It's a bad book.
You want to know the longest book? I'm actually listening to 2 really long books right now. The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich.
That's a great book.
57 hours. I read it when I was a kid. Not a kid, but I read it in high school. It really is great.
How many pages is that? Like, how many pages per hour can they do?
It's huge. I don't know.
All right.
And then the other one I'm reading, I got when I was in Japan, Shogun, the James Clavell novel, 53 hours.
53 hours of one book. That is a commitment.
I think that's value for money.
Although I'm currently reading Democracy in America by Alexis de Tocqueville.
Wow.
It's hard. It's a project. But that's going to be more than 53 hours, I think, to get through.
That's impressive.
So,
that's really
I'm
impressive.
reading it in English. It's not that bad.
On the Bourdain note, I have an article to recommend. It's not about the sponsoring thing, but he brought up such like sadness, and this was a really tough week. And if you all go to Medium, I didn't write this, not self-plugging, but a friend did. It's called When They Leave. And I think, given our conversations about social media and the internet, how we present publicly versus who we are inside and whatever turmoil we might be going through, there's often a big gap between that. And this author does a really good job of reminding us that we don't necessarily know people who we think we know just from their work and just from how they present in public. And there's some good tools in there. And suicide prevention is always something valuable to throw into Google if you're feeling a little panicked about how tough your life can be. So just a public service announcement on the backs of that, because I know that was very hard for many of us.
Sarah Benincasa.
Yes, she is a fantastic writer.
Yeah.
There's been so many beautiful things written about Bourdain on Twitter and on blogs and in papers. It's been fantastic. I felt just better about humanity as a whole after reading just what he did to so many people around the world.
Especially to geeks, I think. I know so many people who have pictures of themselves with him. He was so available. He really talked to people. He reached out, and I know so many people who knew him, or at least had contact with him at one. You'd meet him in a line, and he'd say hi, he'd pose for a picture. I really think that this is an unusual case.
Yeah,
this is somebody, perhaps because he was a real person.
Often when a celebrity dies, a lot of the outpouring feels a bit stilted to me, almost a little bit artificial. They're on a different planet. Yeah. But like Bourdain, or as the president called him, Tony, President Obama, I mean, just everyone seemed to have their own story about him being fantastic in some way. Huge life.
Yeah.
Anyways, Google. Let's go to transition.
Okay. It's not the smoothest in the world, but okay.
And that's why Leo has his job and I don't do this for money.
Anyways, Google.
I was trying to figure out some way out of the hole that I dug for myself there by being all sentimental.
I think it's fine to take a little time and acknowledge his passing and and how much he meant to so many people.
Amen to that.
Anyways, Google.
There you go.
What about it?
The new Gmail is rolling out to all users next month.
Do you like the new Gmail?
I'm ambivalent about it, but I don't like Gmail as it is today, so I'm optimistic about it making my life better.
You can turn it on, if you want right now.
Yeah, but I hate email. I don't want to encourage myself.
What's new about it?
You can boomerang things, so they come back later on. It does look a lot better.
It's pretty.
It's a UI upgrade. It's like what Craigslist refuses to do. Google's, we're going to make it look like from now.
I love it that Craigslist still looks exactly as it did whenever it started, 1985, whenever it
feels like that.
Before it killed the newspapers.
Oh, come on. Are you
so
still bitter about that?
Well,
the new Gmail, that they integrate calendar in a side panel and other plugins. They let you collapse your left column with all of your labels and whatnot. And as someone mentioned, that they will nudge you about emails that you have let linger for a while. And it is a softer, it's curvier and smoother. I don't know all the design language, but it's just a more comfortable on the eyes, and for a place that we all spend time that we'd rather have back. I think it's so far so good after having it for 2 days.
I actually stopped using Gmail.
Wait, what? How do you do mail?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I know.
It's like
It's shocking.
Does MSN offer mail? Is that what you're on?
I pay money for Fastmail, which is an IMAP mail service I really like. It has all the tools I want. I don't want web-based mail, to be honest. I prefer to use a desktop client.
What?
And part of it is because I use PGP signing.
Oh.
And so I want to sign. So if you get an email from me and it's not signed, it's probably not me. Right? Gmail doesn't let you do that. I feel like I have a little more control on a desktop client than I do on a web-based client. So, and Gmail, I used Fastmail with Gmail. I mean, a desktop client, Apple Mail or whatever, Clause is my preferred, with Gmail for a long time. But it's not. It's actually impure IMAP. It's pseudo IMAP, and a real IMAP client gives you, I think, a lot more capability. So Fastmail. I used to pipe my email for a long time. I've been using Fastmail for a decade, but I would pipe Gmail into Fastmail because Gmail had the spam filtering, right?
Yes.
But I've noticed I don't need it anymore. I don't know why, but I actually get more spam because I have a French name on Gmail. That's the other reason I stopped. See, this is all spam.
This is kind of impressive, actually. This is good spam.
This is
top quality spam.
after the filtering.
Yeah.
Marijuana is now legal. Time to confirm your email address.
That's news.
Because that looks completely
That's
legitimate.
Important.
Pure CBD. At least they're blocking the images. Thank you for that, Google.
But you can do attachment previews in the new Gmail, which is kind of cool.
Where's that? Oh, like that's what this button is?
I don't know. Try it.
So I can go to the Fête Saint-Jean
There you go.
in Juillet. So this is what I get a lot of, French spam.
That's the best spam. That's like refined spam, man. You should be lucky. That's a high class problem.
Really? Really?
Spam with a good sauce.
Look at on vendredi 22 juin, 22nd of June, the group The Cretans is going to perform rock roll. Group rock roll pour un soirée tapas.
Oh, this is great. I want to go.
The Cretans with an apostrophe S, which means
they own it.
It's a Cretan owns the group.
Oh, yes.
Or something. And by the way, don't you love French spam in Comic Sans?
It is the France of fonts. I agree.
It's a performance art spam. You just don't get it.
I just don't get it. Well, thank God I had a preview, so I don't have to actually open this email.
Look, I didn't design the new Gmail. I'm just reading what the article says.
What else do we get? This is the one that has artificially intelligent responses.
It's called Smart Compose.
Okay.
And I guarantee you it's not going to be very smart, but shall we try it?
Let me respond to somebody. Should I respond to the
obviously.
Cretan spam?
Yes, of course.
No.
Don't encourage them.
No. Well, wonder if it'll come up with anything.
All right. Well,
no, didn't offer any choices. By the way, this is another reason I stopped using Gmail. I somehow felt compelled to have an HTML signature.
I'm kind of judging you for that right now.
Look at this. It's got all the icons for all my social media.
What's that far right icon? Is that Flickr?
That's a heavy signature, man.
Oh, man. I think it's 40 or 50K. I'm proud of this.
That's a big payload. That's a lot of overhead.
That's a big payload. Look at that. Look at that. It's like a business card in there. It's got a picture. You click, these links are all hot.
You're basically throwing an attachment into all of your outbound emails.
That's right, baby. You want to get one for yourself. It's easy.
What's that icon?
No, I'm good.
Like
it's good. It's from Signature, si.gnatu.re.
Oh my gosh. Web 2.0 call it once its gosh darn URL format back.
What are you
Remember Magnolia? Remember Magnolia? That was like image.
Twitter?
This site is so screwed up it won't even load on Edge. What the hell?
Are we on Edge right now?
Yeah, I use Edge. I'm all in on Windows. Create your personalized HD. Come on, Baratunde. You know you want
I cannot believe that you went on a 35-minute rant against Twitter and then you're promoting
hashtag Baraniture. Let's create a signature for you, Baratunde. See, you can put all the fields in there.
This looks like the United website. It's awful.
Feels a bit.
Oh, United website is actually the worst.
Yeah, I fly a lot of United.
You know what I hate about the United website, as long as we're on a diatribe?
Tell me your things.
For security, they use secret questions. But instead of letting you answer them with whatever you want, which would solve the problem,
what do they do instead?
They give you a drop down of suggested answers.
Mom's mother's name.
You have to choose. They don't do that.
No,
one.
it's like favorite.
What's your
class?
favorite ice cream flavor?
Yeah.
And then you can choose from vanilla, chocolate, strawberry. It's like, that's the worst security I've ever heard of.
It's a finite set of publicly known combinations.
You're telling the hacker what to guess.
Yeah, but dude, the planes aren't that much better, so it's not like the entire experience gets any better from that point on. Yeah. I'm flying United in about 6 days. Please don't spit in my food.
Is that how you go to Providence?
I'm going to Boston this time.
You go to the beautiful TF Green Airport?
You can't fly United to Providence from SFO because it's like 3 stops. So I have to fly United to Boston and drive.
That's what I always do.
Gosh, it's awful.
No, it's great. It's only an hour from Boston to Providence.
Dude, when I get off a plane,
and you can listen to this podcast.
There you go. You can use your audiobooks on the commute. Problem solved.
They used to have, they probably don't have it anymore, these special airport limos, which are like stretch station wagons. They're really long, and they have like 10 windows going. It's a station wagon that somebody put something in the middle of, and they're really long, but you get your own bench seat.
My own whole bench seat?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. How fantastic, Leo. That's going to solve all my problems in life.
We had a great week this week on Twit, and we've decided to make a small movie for you to enjoy. In case you missed any of it, watch.
Previously on Twit.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
It's June 6th. Why are you wearing a huge sweater? This is like eating like stew in June. It just feels wrong.
Know-how.
We've got a project that we teased actually quite a long time ago. It's the LiPi. Now, the whole idea was to take a Raspberry Pi and to surround it with the stuff that you would need to make it portable or the stuff that you would need to make it uninterruptible.
Very nice and clean.
Nice and clean. Still gives me access to all the ports.
You feel better now, Paul?
Yeah, thank you. That's more month appropriate.
And I've taken off my shoes, by the way. I just want you to know I take you seriously.
The new screensavers.
This is the Planet Computers Gemini PDA.
Love this thing.
And I think a lot of people laugh at me when I pull this out of my pocket. But this actually could be your full-time phone and have a little bit more with that nice keyboard built in.
Is that like a Finding Nemo hat?
Yeah.
No.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt or anything.
No, it's okay.
I'm just, you said you wanted me to dress for summer.
I do it to you all the time. This is nice revenge for you.
Twit. Tech just like you like it.
How come sometimes you
Paul, I like what you're doing there. I like where you're going with that.
Look, I'm a YouTube jerk.
Street thug. Oh, lordy.
Anything that has Paul in it, it's going to be fantastic.
Paul is a character.
Good rule.
He is great. So this broke, the rumor broke at the end of Twit last week, and we all kind of jumped in. But it came true. It came true on Monday. Microsoft bought GitHub for $7.5 billion this week.
Baby.
Any thoughts?
I mean, it's massive for Microsoft.
Yeah, so I think you all shared some good links. I think the Harvard Business Review analysis was pretty good in that, and also Brendan Thompson at Stratechery, who you have on often.
Oh, he's
Microsoft
great. Yeah,
needed a way to keep you either lure developers with your access to a tremendous user base or your ability to make them money, or you have to reach out to them directly. And under Satya Nadella, Microsoft has been a very different company than under the Screamer that came before him. And their anti-open source vibe has all but gone away. And so buying GitHub, helps ingratiate them to developers, helps position their tools to be used by them, and can encourage some of their enterprise users to start using even more open source stuff. So the way the Business Review put it, said this is not about the financial gain that you get directly from a GitHub, it's about the strategic value of having millions potentially of developers associated with.
Yeah, but that requires
but associated with your
That
platform.
requires that Microsoft doesn't make a mistake of it, though, or a hash of it. I mean, they're out there doing Reddit AMAs and sharing blog posts, trying to encourage developers to not worry that they're going to come and make a mess of their beloved development home. And I think after reading a whole bunch of this, it's actually kind of working, which I'm a little bit surprised about. But Microsoft has gone on this, Linux love fest. They've been contributing to open source for years now. So they maybe have the actual footing in the market to do this and not scare away all the developers who depend on GitHub to build things. But they could have done it 3 years ago.
No, I think they've changed. Their leadership has changed, and a lot of this stuff comes down from the top. They're acting like a more grown-up company with respect to a lot of these things. So I'm not a hardcore developer like that. I have a GitHub account because I wanted to own Baratunde everywhere on the internet. But I do think that, to your point, Alex, they're behaving very differently than they did in the past, and I think they have a good shot at maintaining this, as they have with some of their other recent acquisitions over the past few years.
You did hear from a lot of open source folks who said, I will never trust Microsoft. There was a spike at GitLab, a competition to GitHub, as people move their projects over there. One concern is perhaps legitimate. I don't think it's going to be a problem, but it's something I can understand people worried about, is that open source developers who are putting their source code up on GitHub privately for them to collaborate and work on are concerned that Microsoft might peek at it and glean some information or that they could certainly the old Microsoft wouldn't have put that I wouldn't have put it past them.
The Ballmer era Microsoft.
The Ballmer era.
But the risk of doing that and being found out, you destroy all goodwill.
Yeah.
It's a massive media scandal. It destroys the stock price, which is shareholder value, which is the point of the public company. So they could. I mean, there's a lot of crimes we all could be committing right now, but we don't because the cost is too high. So I think that's a potential, but it seems really unlikely and super stupid for them to even enable a system where they could do that. Like a rogue employee probably wouldn't be able to do that.
They wouldn't have paid so much money if they weren't convinced that they could convince open source developers that it was safe to stay on GitHub.
Absolutely.
One of the things they did that was right, they appointed Nat Friedman as a CEO of GitHub. He came to Microsoft from an open source project. He and Miguel de Icaza founded Simian, and he was so he's been an open source developer. Nat has since he left MIT. He's got good street cred. He was the guy who did the Ask Me Anything,
and he did
on
fantastically
Reddit.
Well in that AMA. Really,
yeah. He said there will never be ads, on GitHub, on public repositories of code. I'm sure that reassured a lot of people. Nat is, I think, well-liked in the community. So I hope it does work out because, frankly, GitHub, I think, would not have been long for this world had they not been acquired.
Well, there was a lot of different numbers out there about their income and loss statements, and the most recent reporting we had was some numbers from 2016 in which they were losing tens of millions of dollars, I think a quarter at that point in time. But they raised a total of $350 million that we know of throughout their history, and they were worth at least $2 billion.
But $7.5 billion?
So they had a fantastic return for their investors. And if you got in when Andreessen Horowitz did back when they were worth about $750 million, you got 10x probably on your money, if not a little bit more. So for investors, it's a great outcome. For developers, GitHub will now live because Microsoft can afford to feed it.
It's a great resource. I mean, I have to say it is. But also the Free Software Foundation has long time complained about GitHub because some of their code is open, some of it's not open. Some of it. So there's been some questionable practices, I think, at GitHub. There was in the Me Too movement. There were some talk about management at GitHub. So there were some issues.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote that story about the woman who reported sexual harassment from the then CEO Preston Warner or something like that. Who was fired, I think. Yeah. This was back in 2014.
Yeah.
So that's kind of ancient history now in startup terms. But yeah. I mean, it's good to see a company that was notorious for not being exactly well managed find a home that's going to be of correct base size to support its importance in the software world.
Microsoft will never make $7.5 billion back. However, this is not.
But that's not why they bought it.
They didn't buy it for that. No. They bought it for good $7.5 billion worth of goodwill.
Which is what they'll put on their balance sheet, but also Google didn't get to buy it because Microsoft bought it.
Kept it out of Google's hands.
So keep in mind there's competitive
strategic acquisition.
Yeah. Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah, Ben Thompson's article on the cost of developers is actually really good. It even involves WWDC as well. And he talks about the issue of aggregators versus platforms. This is one of his hobby horses.
He loves to beat on this one.
So a platform, in his definition, is something that developers can leverage to create something new. So the classic platform is Windows.
Well, Bill Gates apparently defined it as a platform is something where the people who are coming to your platform make more money than platform
you do.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a good line.
Windows was a good example of this. In fact, I think the personal computing revolution really owes a debt of gratitude to Microsoft. I mean, believe me, there were stumbles, but by creating a stable, solid platform for people to write software on, the 90s were powered by Microsoft software written for Microsoft Windows. I think that's a good thing in the overall, long term of this. Aggregators are something a little different. Google is a classic aggregator. They harvest already produced content or goods to make money off of them.
And both have a place in the market, but in this case, a platform is the more powerful of the two.
Right. And he's quick to point out that while you might think that iOS and the App Store is a platform, it's not. Apple's 30% out of every sale really makes them an aggregator, much more so than a platform. And so I think he is astute, and I'm probably not going to be able to do a great job of summarizing this. But he said that the $7.5 billion that Microsoft paid for GitHub is absolutely critical for, he said the GitHub revenue is not the point. Microsoft has plenty of revenue. What it also has is a potentially fatal weakness. No platform with user-based leverage. So Microsoft's betting that the future of open source cloud-based applications that exist independent of platforms will be a large and increasing share of the future. Everything Microsoft's done over the last 3 years under Satya Nadella has been all about that. The transition away from selling software, from making Windows, to becoming what? A cloud service provider?
A services provider that has a cloud base to it. I mean, Azure is a pillar of the business's, next 15, 20 years. And they're trying to build up their developer tooling so they have a huge percentage of that market share. And they sell services that they've always had, like Office. And Windows fits in there as an accelerant, but not the core hub.
He says any company, Ben does, with a platform with a meaningful amount of users would find it very hard to resist the temptation to use GitHub as leverage. And that's what people are afraid Microsoft will do. But that's the old Microsoft. On the other side of the spectrum, purely enterprise-focused companies, say IBM or Oracle, would be tempted to wring every possible bit of profit out of the company. What Microsoft wants is much fuzzier. It wants to be developers' friend, in large part because, and this is really critical to understanding where Microsoft is today, it has no other option. In the long run, particularly as Windows continues to fade, the company will be ever more invested in a world with no gatekeepers, where developer tools and clouds win by being better on merits, not by being able to leverage users. I think that's really astute and very exciting. That's a future I want to live in.
It sounds good. It sounds very developer-friendly, which means good software, which means we, the end users, will do well. One thing this brought up, though, that I thought was really interesting in this article, and another one he did on this, was the number of developers in the world. And some numbers that Ben cites, including one from IDC, that there are 21 million developers worldwide.
Wow.
But there's way more GitHub accounts than that. And Apple, during WWDC, said there was like over 20 million iOS developers. So one thing that I'm loving to watch over the last week is, who's right? How many developers are there? And the answer is, I have absolutely no idea.
Well, you could certainly create, as Baratunde did, a GitHub account just to keep your name. You can create it if you're a writer. Philip, I know a lot of writers who actually use software like Git code repositories to put their writing online.
Yeah, for sure.
So it doesn't have to be code exactly. I have a GitHub account, but I don't put anything up there. So
well, also what developer means is squishy, right? I mean, your definition is not going to be exactly mine.
If I make a shortcut on iOS, I think I'm a developer. So
you're using Siri Shortcuts. Congratulations. Someday everybody will be a developer. Let's take a quick break, and then the last thing I want to talk about is Computex, big Taiwan computer show where all the new PCs get announced. Intel announced something interesting and fudged the facts a little bit, too. We'll talk about that in just a second. But first, a word about my doorbell, the Ring Video doorbell, which I'm a huge fan of. You know, one of the things we say all the time here is if you're going to get an IoT device, a device that's connected to the internet, you better darn well buy it from somebody who stands behind it, will continue to update the software, fix security flaws, and a device that can be automatically updated. The Ring doorbell is exactly that. In fact, it was about a year ago that there was a security flaw discovered, kind of a minor one with a Ring doorbell. If somebody took your doorbell, they could extract your Wi-Fi login from it. And before it was revealed in public, Ring was notified, fixed it, and had pushed out a fix. So nobody was ever exposed to that flaw. That's what you want. You want a secure device at your front door, a device that makes your house more secure. It lets you see and speak to intruders or anybody in front of your house from your doorbell. When they ring the doorbell, you can answer it. You can say, "Hi, I'm not here." Actually, probably shouldn't say, "Hi, I'm not here." You should probably say, "Hi, I'm in the bathtub. I'll be right there with my shotgun." Actually, I do this all the time with UPS. I say, "I'm in the bathtub. I can't sign, but I'll sign tomorrow. I'll leave it at the front porch." And then you can keep an eye on your package, even if you're across the world, somewhere else in the world. Mike Elgin, who does, who's of course a regular on our shows and spends a lot of time at Airbnbs, brings a Ring video doorbell with him and puts it on the front door wherever he stays. He says it's the best thing you could do to keep yourself safe and know what's going on outside. Ring also makes the Spotlight Cam, which is basically the camera, the HD camera, the speaker, the microphone. No doorbell, because it goes on LED spotlights. You've seen them on people's houses where you go back around the side where the garbage is, and they sense the motion that lights up. It does all that, although I have to say these are LED lights, so you never change the bulb. They're really bright. And then with the camera, you get a motion-activated camera and floodlight. It's connecting to your phone. Anybody goes back there, you'll see immediately. It'll set off an alarm if you want, a 110 dB alarm. So if they don't run away when you say, "What are you doing back there?" push the alarm button and they're running. I think Ring has really done a good thing to make communities safer. They have a Ring neighborhood program. They gave Ring doorbells to 1 in 10 houses in a town in Southern California, cut crime by almost 50%, just by having every 10th house have a doorbell. Criminals said, we're staying away from, I think it was Oceanside. We're staying away. We're not going anywhere near them. Ring is so great, too. I love looking at the Ring Twitter account. Here's a guy, he couldn't figure out how his dogs kept getting out of the front yard. So he watched, look at this. This is
like a magic trick.
This is a magic trick. They can't get out. There he goes. Come on, you can do it. He opened the gate.
Oh, he used his head. His head got stuck.
He used his head to open the gate. Now the dogs are free. Free at last. Ring let him know that the dogs were getting out. I love actually visiting the Ring Twitter account, twitter.com/Ring, because they post stuff up there all the time for people with a Ring doorbell and even bad guys running away. It is really fun to see. Ring. If you want to, there's a special deal right now, actually. If you go to ring.com/twit, you can monitor every corner of your property with a Ring of Security kit. You get the Ring video doorbell and your choice of either 1, 2, or 3 floodlight cams and up to $150 off. Great deal. Stop crime before it happens. Keep an eye on what's going on. Help make your neighborhood safer with Ring. Save up to $150 on a Ring of Security kit at ring.com/twit. 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 That's the best thing I've installed. I installed that a couple of years ago. I just love it.
The killer app for my security system is you get to know when the cleaning ladies have left and you can come back home.
That's actually one of the ways I use it. Like, oh, they're gone.
It is really awkward to be in your house when someone else is cleaning it. I don't know why, but I feel so bad.
So I don't think I'm telling tales out of school. When Lisa was in college, she cleaned houses to help pay for her tuition. And she said she didn't like it when the owners stuck around. She felt like they were snooping on her.
Yeah.
They're hovering. So it's not just you. Everybody, just get out of the house.
I just camp out at Starbucks like a moron. Anyways.
So now you know. You just look at the Ring video doorbell. You'll know when they're gone. You can actually get a notification when they leave, which is even better. You don't have to watch. So, Computex, Taiwan. Intel announced a 50th anniversary product. They call it the i7-8086. Get it? It's a 5 gigahertz coffee lake, except, whoa, wait a minute. Turns out it was overclocked and nitrogen cooled to get to 5 gigahertz. And Intel neglected to mention that.
How did they get found out?
That's a good question.
Because that's a pretty embarrassing thing to do, to show off, essentially a new stake in the market to kind of beat back AMD's competitive edge.
Yeah.
And to be lying really undercuts your PR.
Especially as your 50th anniversary microprocessor. It is a K processor, so it can actually, somebody's overclocked it, I think, to 7.2 gigahertz.
Oh, jeez.
Why didn't they announce that?
Yeah, it's way more impressive.
Live big.
As
Go
long as
Theranos or go home.
As long as you're doing it.
Wait, did you just make a Theranos joke?
I did. I said go Theranos or go home. Like if you're gonna,
that's the best thing I've heard all week, right there.
It's our new 7.24 gigahertz processor.
I'm always up for a Theranos joke, man.
Did you see, I don't know if this is apocryphal, that Elizabeth Holmes is now going out looking for new investments on a new startup?
We read that in Vanity Fair on the way over here on our ferry ride.
Nick Bilton.
Yeah,
Nick Bilton.
That's what we said.
Right. Can you believe that?
Yes, I can believe that. I live in Silicon Valley. I've met these people.
Again, go Theranos or go big. I think you're exactly right.
Go home, yeah.
Yeah, or go home. Sorry.
Or Intel just
This is why I let you do. You're the wordsmith, Baratunde.
It's all right. We're a team, Leo. It's cool.
Okay. AMD, not to be left out, announced a 32-core processor. They call it the Threadripper.
Just a heavy metal name for a bit of silicon.
Just, call it Conan and be done with it. The 32, we don't know how much it'll cost. Availability later this year. That's as close as they're going to get, but that's pretty amazing. A 32-core Threadripper 2.
I bet you that Slack and Chrome will still be able to bring any computer running 32 cores to a complete standstill.
Now you know why I use Edge. Okay,
I'm just saying, no matter what Mac or Windows computer that I'm on, no matter how powerful it is, Chrome, Slack, and Spotify can literally turn it into fudge, and that's shocking to me. So 32 cores, whatever, it'll still be terrible.
This is my favorite product announced. This is an ASUS ZenBook Pro 15 with a screen where the trackpad ought to be. So the idea is you could use it as a trackpad, or you could have it do other stuff. You could have a little calculator app running there. You could, let me show the video. It's pretty wild. This is the ZenBook Pro. It's not available yet. You could get settings in there. This is your trackpad, right? You could, if you're watching a YouTube video, you could have the play controls there.
So it's like a touch pad instead of a touch bar?
Yeah.
I was just about to say.
It's much like but the difference is the Apple Touch, you already got your fingers on the touch trackpad, so.
Yeah. Well, everyone loves the touch bar so much. This must be a great idea.
Right.
Yeah.
They took Apple's
Did they
worst
just show someone
idea.
watching videos down there?
Yeah. So while you're doing
the spreadsheet,
the spreadsheet, you can watch your favorite videos.
So to be clear, they put a PC in your PC so you can compute while you compute. I think that's an old meme.
Oh,
bringing it back.
That's a throwback meme. I love it. You get points for that.
No, but like literally, they had the Windows start bar on the touchpad screen in
That's
one of
right.
the pictures.
It could be a second screen.
Oh, I kind of like that now. I like having more than one screen, and I struggle with my laptop only having one screen. Oh, I hate that I like this. All right.
It's 5.5 inches.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty big. Ladies and gentlemen, I hear that dinner is almost ready in the Thurston household. What is for dinner, Baratunde?
No idea.
It smells good.
Yeah, it does.
What's your girlfriend cooking?
That is between me and her.
Can you smell what Baratunde's cooking? Can you smell it?
The answer is yes, and I have to add another layer of security to my home.
Well, I'm going to let you go eat it. We want to tell everybody to read Baratunde's manifesto. I think it really is right on. It's on Medium. Or you could just go to baratunde.com and get links to both his posts, the New Tech Manifesto and his 800-step detox. Hey, let's be fair. It's not easy, but hey, somebody's got to do it, right?
And then I did it for y'all. I'm experimenting with another way for people to connect with me, which is not on a public social platform. It's on via SMS. I'm just putting my number out there.
What?
It's a public number. It's
don't. What are you, crazy? Are you going to charge people for that?
No. This is an experiment, so I'm not going to charge you for me to learn. We'll do this together. But that number is 202-902-7949. And if you send a text with hashtag twit, then I'll be able to know how you came through. And I plan to use it to announce when I have big articles or appearances.
Right now.
If I'm doing live events in your area, you can share information with me about you as much as you're comfortable. I just definitely need a name and an email. And we can have one-on-one conversation, which I have found over the past few weeks is actually really different and interesting from mailing list, which is all broadcast, or Twitter, Facebook, which is kind of performative. And so I'm learning a lot. I'm able to talk to people in more of a conversational mode. So again, 202-902-7949. Just text #twit and we'll play around.
Do you are you using some sort of hardware or an SMS box or something to?
It's a platform called Superphone, and I know the creator. We actually went to college together. When he initially, the first version he built himself on Rails, and he stitched together like Google Voice and MailChimp and Twilio. Now he's gotten a bit more fun, including from BetaWorks, and enabled more. It was designed. He's a musician. He wanted to have a deeper relationship with his fans and customers, but now they have different cases for.
I want to do this.
Right. So again, this isn't exactly an endorsement. I keep using the word experiment because I don't know how well this is going to play out or how well it scales, but I am, putting it out there for folks to learn. And you can always opt out. And I'm not going to sell all your stuff. I'm not going to make targeted ads to creep you out about what your kids are up to.
I think we broke your Superphone because I haven't gotten a response back. It's been 5 seconds.
It actually has a time delay built in. Oh. So you're probably doing fine.
Baratunde, are you requiring real names?
I am not requiring real names.
No, but he's going to get your phone number.
I have no way of knowing what your real name is. I do get your phone number. If you want to use a burner, you want to use a voice.
I went and bought a burner phone just so I could text.
I'll get you a fake number. You get me a fake number.
I asked because on my comment stream, I insist on real names, and it's just it gets rid of all the junk. When people are using their real names.
Philip, there is no public window on this. This isn't a website where you're writing to me in front of other people. It's literally SMS.
Got it.
So it won't bother me if you call yourself something that no one else calls you. In fact, I feel more special. But it's just a texting relationship.
Got it.
And experiments, again, last time I'll say it. But thank you, Leo, for having me. Philip, Alex, it's been a pleasure talking with y'all and learning. And detox it up and keep holding folks accountable. I love it. Thank you.
Detox it up, baby. Great to see you, Baratunde. Go have that.
Let's go dark mode.
I think it's curry. I think you're having chicken tikka masala. It smells good.
I don't trust what's happening right now. It's really concerning. I'm like, does my router snitching? Do I have an Amazon device?
Oh man, it smells good.
If you got it right, how creepy would that be?
It smells a little. It's got a little taste of the East. That smells good.
I'm actually honestly very hungry right now, Leo. This is very much not helping my mood.
I detect a little coriander, a little cumin.
I'm gonna cry on set.
That smells good. Some cardamon's in there. That's gonna be good.
I'm gonna let you guys talk about what you imagine I'm eating, and have a great life until I see y'all next. Your voices.
Great to see you.
It is Mr. Editor-in-Chief of the Crunchbase News, Alex Wilhelm. If you were a basketball player, that's how I'd announce you.
That would be much better than my normal announcements.
Alex Wilhelm.
I could get used to that. That's fantastic.
From downtown, 3-pointer.
I wish.
Yeah. Alex, anything you want to plug besides Crunchbase News?
No, that's really about it. Although I will say I'm going to encourage everyone to follow Baratunde on Twitter because he's fantastic.
Oh, I just got a text from him.
This is my first time ever talking to him, and he was so hilarious. I just loved it.
If I could go
ahead. It did work. There you go.
It worked. This is Baratunde's Superphone text messaging experiment.
Now you have a friend, Leo.
Now I have a friend, finally.
I know.
Yeah. Maybe next time I'll have a girlfriend.
No, probably not.
No. Look, my wife just got home. See, with Ring, you know everything.
There you go.
Yes. Philip Elmer-DeWitt, the Dean of Mac Journalism. Always a pleasure, but usually we get you via Skype. I'm thrilled to have you in studio.
Well, I've lived out of a suitcase for a week to do this.
Well, have you?
Yeah.
You were here for WWDC.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were you going to go home earlier?
I was, yeah.
Oh, I'm
I hung
grateful.
around for you.
Thank you. I hope you at least got to go to Alcatraz. Maybe had a cotton candy at
I went to
Fisherman's
museums.
Wharf.
I spent each day at a museum.
Oh, there's a Magritte exhibit in town. Did you see that?
I saw that.
Oh, I'm dying to see that.
Yeah, and I like the cult of the machine.
I saw that.
Yeah,
the DeYoung.
I love that stuff.
Isn't that wild?
It's paintings of the stuff I love to take pictures of, like
from the
old
30s
machines.
and 40s when technology was just starting to enter the mass culture.
Yeah, it was sexy to them and scary. So it had this nice tension going on.
Yeah, it's a good show. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. Cult of the Machine. Follow Mr. Elmer-DeWitt at ped30.com. ped30.com. His great coverage of Apple news. It's all there for you, absolutely free. Oh, there's the Facebook If It Were a Bar
It's
video.
actually not absolutely free. There is a paywall that lifts after a few hours.
Oh, that's right.
On the stuff that's exclusive.
You do that very cleverly. So you eventually get access to everything. But
Everything's
if you want
free eventually.
If you want it sooner, you pay a little, which
Or
makes
if you
a lot
want
of
it,
sense.
If you want it in your inbox and if you want to participate in the comment stream, unlike what someone said here, I do get comments, but they're good.
You're the only person in the world to get good
because
online
they're real
comments
name
then.
comments.
They're real name, and they're investors who know way more about Apple investing than I do. So I learn from them every day. They're great people.
Well, I've just added myself to the Superphone phone book. Would you text me if I gave you a special number?
I might text you if you gave me your real number and I was running late, but I don't know. I mean, I don't
know what's
need.
going to happen is all these people are going to say, hey, I'm running late for the podcast. Could you start a little later? I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I don't think you want to give people the option of being late because everyone's pretty much on time to Twit. It's kind of impressive. Every single week that I've been on, no one's. Oh, Jason Calacanis once, I think. Yeah.
Jason Calacanis, actually gave out it will text you for money. He has a subscription SMS service.
Wait, so I give him money, he texts me back?
Yeah.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've heard in some time.
Well, he texts you with good stuff, I think.
But it's Jason. How could it?
Oh, we're going to get you on with Calacanis.
Not again. He made fun of me last time. It's quite rude.
He did? How dare he?
No, Jason's just part of Silicon Valley in a way that I. Yeah. What can you do?
We like being outsiders. He's the ultimate insider. Ladies and gentlemen, we have concluded this fabulous Sunday edition of This Week in Tech. We're glad you were here. We do it every Sunday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. That's 2200 UTC. If you would like to join us in studio, we had visitors from all over the world, including Dripping Springs, Texas, 78620. From San Jose via Philadelphia, from San Jose via Israel, from North Carolina, and from Cleveland, Ohio. And Argentina, too, Mendoza, Argentina. We thank you all for being here. If you want to be in studio and watch us live, just email tickets@twit.tv. We'll put a chair out for you. You can also watch the live stream, twit.tv/live. If you do that, join us in the chat room, irc.twit.tv. You can be one of the kids in the back of the class, throwing spitballs at the host during the show. If you can't do this live, and I understand you've got a busy, busy life, and you're probably watching the Tony Awards and things like that, all you got to do is subscribe. Go to twit.tv to get the podcast, audio and video. You can download it there. If you subscribe, you don't have to do anything. It'll just appear on your phone or your tablet or whatever it is you use. Just go to your favorite podcast app and search for This Week in Tech. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes this gripping edition of Twit. Thanks for joining us. Another Twit.
This is amazing.
Bye.